What if Bella was Aro'S salvation part 2? On very really high demand. Let's get into the video. Emmett, arriving in Volterra as a member of the guard, after judgment and standing by while our belongings went up in smoke, was weird. Dimitri quickly explained that the queen required his attendance and disappeared. Santiago took Rosalie and me in hand. Heidi was swiftly located, and she provided us with small but clean, furnished quarters. She also offered a list of the attire we would need in a $5,000 credit card. An outfit of Felix's was provided for me, and I was able to experience the joy of a shower again while Rosalie was provided with fresh clothes via Heidi's wardrobe. Once we were both clean and adequately attired, Rosie went shopping for the things we would need. I was guided to Afton, my new supervisor, and given a tour of the parts of the castle I had access to. I was forbidden from the royal quarters, for any reason, on pain of death. It was understandable, and I had expected more serious restrictions. My schedule was created post-haste, and I was stationed, after a short orientation, in the jails. Dimitri was right. The hours were long and the tasks boring, but it wasn't endless wandering, and I was grateful for the opportunity. The jails were more full than I anticipated. I read each prisoner's record to familiarize myself with the current crisis possibilities in the castle. I was determined to be helpful, or as helpful as they would allow me to be. Life had taught me pointedly that I was not human. It was a relief not to have to provide a human facade, but it was strange, unfamiliar to act as a vampire. When my shift was finished, Afton fetched me and guided me through the sublevels to the archives. I was presented with a stack of texts that I was told to read. Then, Afton left me to get to work, with the order not to remove the books from the archive. The books were varied. They appeared to be primers of laws, customs, the rise of the Volturi, and even the basics of worldwide covens. I knew none of this, even at my age. I felt ignorant of my own world. I settled into reading. There were only a few hours between reading and my next shift in the jails by the time I read the last word in the last book. Still, I had time to embrace my Rosie and explore the results of her shopping trip. She apologized for the lack of fancy clothing, explaining that she had to shop solely in the mall and focus on clearance racks to stretch the money enough to provide for both of us. I comforted her, explaining that we had a furnished home, clothing, and that our needs would be met. It wasn't our previous luxury, but it was a life. Rosie expressed her wish to find a place for herself in this new world. I suggested she check the garages to see if she could be of use there. She smiled a genuine smile. I knew when I saw it that we would be okay. We cuddled on the couch and began to recover from our trials as nomads. Soon our time together was done, and I reported back to the jails. I made sure to be early. I wouldn't risk being seen as lazy. It was time to reorient myself, adapt, and eventually rebuild my reputation. Bella, the enforced silence my doctor insisted on ended today, and I was so excited. I was ready to retire my pad of paper and join my mate in court once more. I missed Aro, but as king and his duties had kept him away from me for long hours every day while I rested and recovered. Aro was present for my first words. My declaration of I love you was still a little hoarse, but I was healing. Aro embraced me gently. He asked cautiously if I was ready to face Athenodora and her assistant's trial. I assured him that I was prepared. Aro made me promise to stay out of Athenodora's reach. That was an easy promise to make. I had no urge for a repeat of her attack. It took roughly an hour after Aro and I were cuddled on his throne for everyone to convene and the prisoners to be led in. Santiago and Felix held them to ensure no one attacked, and Dimitri guarded the thrones. They were taking no chances with my safety. Aro read the thoughts of both Athenodora and her accomplice. His eyes were pitch black. I assumed it was rage because he had fed recently. Aro and Keys questioned Athenodora thoroughly. The man who had provided her with newborns was named Sylvester. She had met him on her travels, and they had been lovers. He claimed no territory that we knew of, and Athenodora's knowledge was limited. I had expected her to be allied with the Romanians. The realization that there was a new player in the vampire world filtered through both my mind and that of those who observed the trial. We didn't cower. We didn't give in to fear. We simply accepted the upcoming challenges with grace and determination. We were the Volturi. After they finished their questioning, Athenodora's gaze met mine. Which, she spat. That word was followed by what must have been cursing in many different languages. I sat calmly. She could no longer harm me, not even emotionally. Silence, Keys snarled from his throne. You are no longer queen here. Your foul opinions carry no weight. But you love me, Athenodora cried. You had my devotion and my body, but never my love, Keyes growled. In your absence, I will find my mate and true queen. You were merely a retainer, a placeholder, and an unpleasant one at that. Keyes rose from his throne, circling Athenodora. Felix released her at Keyes' order and then joined Dimitri in guarding me. Keyes ripped her to pieces slowly. The kind but reserved nature he had with me was nowhere in sight. He was a predator. He was dangerous and in the mood for destruction. I had to force myself not to look away from this slow annihilation. He did this to protect me. I would watch. When it was finished, Felix passed a lighter to Keyes. Together, they ensured she burned completely. Her compatriot was destroyed quickly and painlessly, in comparison, by Felix alone. When they were both gone and the ashes were discarded, we began to discuss Sylvester and how we might find him. After other ideas were brought up and discarded, I suggested that she to have contacted him by telephone to acquire the newborns. Surely the device would provide us with a starting point. Felix collected the phone and promised to track every contact she had. He left me to see to it. I agreed that there was no need for doubling my guard now that Athenodora was no more. He and his team would get the answers we needed. My tiredness caught up to me, and Dimitri led me home while Aro'S stayed to see to the Romanian spy. Conversation flowed and Dimitri explained Emmett and Rosalie's new place among us. It would be hard for them to live among us while under suspicion. I thought for a moment and explained to Dimitri what I wanted to do. This would be a small kindness to hopefully help them on their way. Dimitri looked at me, shocked at my idea for only a moment. Then he led the way to my new destination. The workers in the garage stood and bowed on our entrance. I invited them to stand and be at ease. Dimitri led me to the vampire in charge. How may I serve you, mistress? He asked nervously. Please offer Rosalie a place among you. Allow her to show her worth. I requested. She asked for accommodation earlier today, but I denied her. He admitted. There must be jobs here that no one wants to do where she could prove herself. Please consider this a personal favor. I negotiated. The vampire nodded slowly, thinking carefully. There are tasks I could assign to no one wants to do where she can cause no harm, even if she were so inclined. I will allow her to prove herself for you, my queen. I smiled and offered the vampire my hand. I am Bella, I offered. Thomas, he said. After a few more pleasantries, Thomas got back to work, and a disbelieving Dimitri guided me to Rosalie and Emmett's accommodations. Rosalie opened the door slowly. I'd never seen such a disheartened expression on her face. I stepped forward. Rosalie appreciated frankness. I would provide it. We are not friends, Rosalie. We have never been, but I want to see you thrive here. I secured you a position in the garage. It will likely be the most boring, dirty jobs available, but it is yours. You start at dawn. It will allow you to build something meaningful, I hope. Thank you, Rosalie said. Neither of us was one for small talk, so the conversation ended quickly. My steps were heavy, but I felt accomplished when I fell into bed. Sleep claimed me. Marcus. I was surprisingly happy in the reign of Court Angelus as long as Angela was near. I saw her every day now, for at least a short time. Every day was something new. We explored, shopped, ate, conversed on almost every subject imaginable. And she instructed me in photography. We planned on venturing further away from her home to see Seattle on her next day off. She was becoming attached to me, and I was already deeply in love with the woman she was now. I no longer had to fight with myself thinking about her as Diademe reborn, she was Angela. Still, she was not attached enough to agree to join me in Volterra. She had strong ties in this town and in Forks. I would have my work cut out for me to convince her to leave, even temporarily. I worried that I would be called home for something urgent before she was ready to join me. But I tried to live each day individually and not lose myself in fear. Corin excelled at following in the shadows, guarding us without it being obvious. It was a skill she hadn't had much opportunity to polish. So I would make sure to compliment her competency to Dimitri when we arrived home. Jane and Alec blended in well, too, although their ages were restrictive for them. Over the years, EY had learned to make accommodations for their appearance when they were in the human world. Jane and Alec continued to educate me on the modern world when Angela wasn't around. We even visited a house that sold technology so that I could study and experiment with the various gadgets in existence. I requested that Felix issue me my own telephone and waited for it to arrive the following day. On the whole, our mission progressed as quickly as I could have hoped. I only had one main concern about Angela returning to Volterra. She was such an innocent, gentle soul that she couldn't stand even issuing a harsh word. Time had not hardened her at all despite her maturity. Confrontation or, heaven forbid, watching an execution would be impossible for her. Bella had been hardened by life and had a wisp of darkness in her. Abandonment, cruelty, and survival had left their mark on her. It allowed her to be queen while retaining her ultimately kind heart. Angela's life had been softer, easier, and hadn't forced her to see the world as the place it truly could be. I didn't think that Angela's life had been free of hardship, but it wasn't the sort that prepared you for a place such as Volterra. She'd proven by her nightly wanderings that she didn't possess the situational awareness to avoid dangers around even Port Angeles. Ultimately, I would have to balance her need for independence with her need for shelter from the world's darkness. It was a service I would be honored to provide my gentle mate. I thought that when she finally joined me, she might gain pleasure assisting me in the archives and the library. I was more hopeful than I could recall being that eventually my love would truly be mine. Volterra settled into a peaceful rhythm for 3 glorious weeks. Bella and I were closer than ever. We even shared passionate moments once her healing was complete. Keys's temper had faded to a manageable level, there were no serious missions taking place, and Marcus's relationship with Angela grew ever closer. Jane and Alec were growing restive in the human world, but that was always the case when they were on missions that required them to blend in. Bella attended movie nights with the guard, joined me to greet supplicants during the day, read books about our society without becoming obsessed, and was genuinely happy. The guard was even content. As no other tasks were outstanding, they busied themselves by training their combat skills. Bella had quietly requested that Dimitri help Chelsea improve so that she wasn't at such a risk in her next conflict. Our queen was genuinely fearful for our safety. Bella began introducing herself to and getting to know the lower levels of the guard. They looked on in unconscious adoration as she offered them the same level of respect and care she showed the elites. The one thing Bella did not do, that I half expected her to, was try to involve herself in Emmett's and Rosalie's lives. When I asked her about it, she explained that pain from their abandonment still existed and that the only helping hand she was willing to offer was aiding Rosalie in acquiring a suitable career. She felt no need to involve herself with him further and absolutely no urge to rebuild any level of friendship with them. It was a relief that she no longer required their approval, so I didn't mention it again. Rosalie and Emmett faded into the background, each going about their respective tasks. Bella spoke frequently with Marcus, once he acquired a telephone, as well as keeping in touch with Jane and Alec. I assumed Corin's duties prohibited extended contact with our queen. Bella had so many bonds, and she balanced each of their needs with precision. She'd come such a long way from the girl afraid to make genuine connections. It all toppled, starting with a phone call. Our receptionist, who was so reliable and efficient that I was beginning to think she might last long enough that I should learn her name, forwarded a call to me. One of the many spies on the Romanian contingent had been unable to reach Dimitri and had bypassed the chain of command to report directly to me. The Romanians had learned that Marcus was awake and existed outside the Volturi stronghold. They were moving with all haste to silence him. It was unclear if they knew of Angela's importance. Chaos ensued as guards were dispatched for Marcus's protection. Marcus was informed of the danger to him and his love, and Bella's assistance was sought with all haste. I would not allow her to travel into danger. She remained human, after all. This situation was entirely too volatile for her to reveal herself. Bella insisted with a ferocity that I hadn't seen from her before that Angela be able to return to the world of humans if she needed to, once the danger had passed. Even were she to learn the secrets of the immortal world, it would be up to Marcus to convince her to stay with us if Bella brought her here. Not even Keys was willing to deny her demands. Knowing she attempted to ensure her friend's happiness, it was with that provision and in that state of mind that Bella agreed to make the most important call of Marcus's existence. Bella, once I secured Angela's freedom, should she require it, I found myself ushered to Dimitri's office to make a call that I hoped might save my friend's life. As I walked through now familiar corridors, I relived moments of the friendship we'd shared. I reminded myself that Angela had always been trustworthy. In fact, she'd never been grounded that I was aware of, barring the one time she provided an alibi for me. My concern was that she would dismiss the danger that currently circled her in her innocence. Perhaps she had changed, but the Angela I had known was gentle and innocent. I was the one mired in darkness and secrets. Dimitri acquired a secure, untraceable line for me, and I quickly dialed the cell phone number that Felix's research had revealed. The ringing seemed ominous, but I was sure. That was just my current mood and the nervousness that beat along with my pulse. When Angela came on the line, I could have cried. "Angie, this is Bella Swan," I said. "Bella, you're supposed to be dead," Angela exclaimed. "It was necessary, Angie, for me as well as everyone else," I admitted. Before she could ask questions, I continued. "Do you remember in high school, all the secrets I kept, the evasive answers, the half-truths?" "Of course," Angela answered. "It's come time that you have to know the truths that I kept hidden, my friend, and for that I'm both grateful and sorry. First, though, I've learned that danger is coming to find you. I need you to trust me now as you would have in high school. Can you do that?" Angela thought for a minute, and I was afraid that she would say no and hang up. After her moment of silence, Angela just asked, "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to open your door. You will be greeted by a beautiful woman named Corin. I need you to go with her." "My school, my family, the kids, what do I say?" Angela asked. "We will figure it out, I promise you. Your safety is at risk now. I need you to move." I prodded. "Marcus," Angela asked. "He's coming with you. Move quickly, I promise. I will tell you everything you've ever wanted to know about me, the secrets that I've kept, and everything I know about Marcus, but you must get to the plane." I insisted. "I'm moving now," Angela agreed. I heard her open the door and Corin's relieved greeting. It sounded like Corin scooped her up, and from the wind, they were traveling at full speed. I waited patiently as Corin met up with Jane and Alec. I wondered where Marcus was until I heard him soothing Angela. I waited patiently for them to reach the plane. Angela would demand answers soon. She certainly deserved the entire truth. I considered possible excuses for her family and her work that wouldn't prevent her from returning if she chose to. I didn't regret that I was here with my mate. I wouldn't have it any other way. But Angela had more bonds to the human world, closer ones. I hoped for my and Marcus's sake that he could convince her to join us. I had missed my friend, and he would be lost without his mate. Damn it, Ree gave me a thumbs-up signal to encourage me to continue. I took deep breaths and prepared myself to reveal my every secret to my friend. I reminded myself that I didn't want to dump too much on Angela. I didn't want to overwhelm her. When the wind ceased, I knew the truth was moments away. I heard Marcus escort Angela to the stateroom in the rear of the plane. It took her a moment to settle, then her voice nervously commanded, "Spill. Bella, don't leave anything out. I started back in high school. You realize there was something different about the Cullens, didn't you?" Of course. They were too beautiful, too graceful, and too isolated. I tried to involve them in school activities, but they wouldn't allow it. Edward even occasionally responded to my thoughts, not my words. I figured their secrets were their own, and eventually left them to the isolation they seemed to prefer. I walked Angela through my early experiences with the Cullens and my joy at being included in the family. I walked her through events that I had glossed over. Edward's fierce glare and his week-long disappearance were explained. I told her about Jacob's scary stories and figuring out the truth of what the Cullens truly were. Leaving Angela stuttering her request for clarification. "Vampires don't exist," she declared. "They are just fodder for scary stories and paranormal romance novels." I explained Edward D's pitch-black gaze after he rescued me from rapists in Port Angeles. I explained how he saved me from the out-of-control van with his bare hand. I explained the events of that night when Edward Conference earned his ability to read minds and my accusation of his true nature. I admitted that I'd seen Edward as a savior, a hero, and that I'd fallen deeply in love with him. I admitted how he pulled me close and pushed me away and how, in my innocence, it had made me more fascinated with him, not less. "You dated a vampire and hid his true nature from all of us in high school," Angela clarified. "Yes," I said simply. "No wonder you seemed evasive with us at times," she declared. Such a big secret would have been hard to keep. It was a relief to tell the truth to my most trustworthy human friend. I explained, Ed, how the vampire world had its own criminals, and meeting the nomads while playing baseball with the Cullens. I explained how my harsh words to Charlie were necessary for him to let me go, and that I feared for Charlie's safety if I were to stay. I explained the trip to Phoenix. The speed of the car, the length of the trip, and Jasper's kindness came from my lips. I explained how James had found me and drawn me to the dance studio. I tried to gloss over the torture, but Angela wouldn't allow it. "What did he do to you?" I explained, cautiously. I didn't want to scare Angela, but she needed to know what vampires were capable of. I never bought the fell 2 flights of stairs and through a window excuse, Angela admitted. It was a necessary fiction, so Charlie didn't learn the truth of vampires' existence, but I admit, they could have told a better story. Both of us laughed, and I felt relieved that she was still able to, with all the facts that had been thrown at her. What came next, Bella? Angela asked. I made my way through my past. I was relieved that none of the details trapped me in my memories. I explained all the way up to my birthday. Do you remember how down I was about my birthday? I asked. Of course. You looked crushed at the idea of your birthday, but I never understood. Angela admitted. Edward was changed young. He was only 17 when he was changed. He couldn't age further, and he was firmly against changing me so that I could be his equal. I was terrified of growing older than him. Maturity felt like a tragedy, and age felt like a curse. I had nightmares where I was old and wrinkled. And he remained the same. I'm sorry, Bella, that should never be a concern in high school. We were so young, Angela declared. You can see now why I would react poorly to a party to celebrate reaching an age Edward never would. The presents they provided that night, the candles, the cake, the twinkle lights, they all felt wrong. I was in mourning, though I tried to appear cheerful. It became worse when the paper on one of the packages sliced my skin. Vampires do crave blood, and the Cullens' diet made them more susceptible to their urges. Jasper lunged. I don't know whether he was lunging for me or if he felt Edward losing control and was trying to protect me. It really doesn't matter now. Edward threw me into a glass table that was covered with glass plates. I was injured, and more blood flowed. All the Cullens but Carlisle had to leave the room. Most even left the house. Carlisle removed the glass and stitched me up. How awful. You must have been terrified. Angela gasped. It only went downhill from there, I confirmed. I recounted Edward's attitude in the following days. I explained his harsh words in the forest. I even told her about following Edward uselessly into the forest, willing to do anything to try to find him. The reason I was so depressed after they left went far beyond losing a high school crush. I thought my mate had walked away from me, taking his family and the lifestyle I'd chosen with them. Edward even took all my mementos of the family. I don't know whether he thought a lack of reminders would aid my healing or if it was his final act of cruelty. But it hurt. You were a ghost of yourself for months, Angela confirmed. I tried to seek you out, include you in plans, or even sit beside you in silence, but you were just gone. I worried Charlie so much during that time. I regret it, but I had to fight for every step. Every breath was a struggle. I was unable to appear normal, no matter how hard I tried. I didn't do it on purpose, Angie. I didn't leave you intentionally. There are more secrets, Angie, more half-truths, more outright lies. Do you want to hear them now, or would you rather rest and absorb what you've already heard? I don't want to overwhelm you. Angie paused. She was genuinely considering her options. I need to know now, please, Angela admitted. Telling the story of the wolves and how I was brought back to life wasn't as difficult. Angela didn't express doubt that shapeshifters existed, as she had with vampires. At least, the story flowed until it got to the part about the battle with Victoria and the newborns. I tried again to gloss over the horror, but Angela didn't allow it. Eventually, I gave in and recounted every detail I could recall. Angela didn't comment until we got to Jacob's exit from my life. He stood with you through it all. Why abandon you when the battle was over? Angela asked. I was too broken to love him. After Edward's departure, I felt like a hole had been ripped in my chest. You remember how I always walked with my arms around myself? It felt like I was trying to hold the pieces together. Jacob was a band-aid. He couldn't heal the wound. What did you do when you were alone again? Angela asked quietly. I thought she might be afraid of the answer. I talked about going to college, explaining that I didn't make more than casual acquaintances. I told Angela about the Volturi and their duty in the world. I explained how I made myself a small, but relatively satisfying life while I waited for them to come for me. It happened, didn't it, Bella? They came for you, Angela asked. Yes, Angie, but don't be afraid for me. A miracle occurred. I met a man, a king, one of the 3 rulers of the vampire world. He healed my heart and my soul with a single glance. The broken pieces are whole again. He's my soulmate. He's the man I belong with. I love him, and believe it or not, I am his queen, even as a human. Marcus and the others are vampires too, aren't they? Angela asked calmly. Yes, But Angela, you are to Marcus what Aro is to me. You are his soulmate, his healing, the key to his very existence. He would never harm or allow harm to come to you, and he, like my Aro, is another one of the kings. I had to get you out of Port Angeles. Danger was coming, and in the fight, you and Marcus might have both died. Marcus certainly would have. Angela was silent for several moments. I didn't interrupt her thoughts. I'm sorry for what you've been through, Bella. You suffered so much. The rest of this conversation needs to be had with Marcus, I think. I need answers only he can give me. I agree. Try not to be too hard on him. I'll see you soon, I said. The sound of the phone disconnecting seemed ominous, but my mission was accomplished. Angela was safe and in the air on her way to Volterra. Aro. I did not have to issue commands. Our guard was always motivated, but Angela's imminent arrival had them in top form. Dimitri commanded which vampires would be there to greet Marcus and which would stay behind to guard the castle. A small army would be there to meet the plane in case the Romanians were smarter than expected. Heidi acquired Angela enough clothing to get her through to a shopping trip. Bella thought Angela might actually enjoy choosing her own clothing. Felix hacked into the Romanian computer system so that he could track their movements better. Everyone seemed to have been assigned a necessary task. Those who hadn't been seemed to have identified a way they could assist under their own motivation. It was beautiful to watch. Bella had given up her idea that she be at the airport to greet Angela and Marcus after being denied 3 times after 3 separate arguments with Dimitri. In the end, he promised Bella that he would show Angela the same kindness he had shown her. Bella wasn't happy, but she was content enough after she told Dimitri, Angela is kinder and gentler than I am. She may be afraid in ways that I wasn't. Keys and I, while watching the guards see to their self-appointed chaos, tried not to laugh while Bella paced the throne room. She was mumbling and muttering, but it was too quiet for even a vampire's ears. I could feel her nervousness through the connection we shared, but for my existence, I couldn't figure out a way to calm my mate. She was stunning as she paced. She dressed in a rust-colored dress tee fit her glorious bodice but flared out around her feet. Her sandals made a slap-slap sound on the stone as she progressed back and forth repeatedly. After Bella wore her path in the stone back and forth a full 10 times, she stopped. What if she doesn't forgive me for my lies and half-truths about the Cullens? What if she can't forgive my fibs to shield the wolf pack? She gave me absolute loyalty. I gave her carefully crafted half-truths, diversion, and lies. If she is as kind as you say, she will not hold a grudge now that she understands why you behaved as you did. From your description, T didn't sound like she held a grudge earlier, either, and she had to know you were keeping secrets. Keys comforted. Bella took deep breaths, seeming to calm. That is true. I'm just nervous. I'm sure it will all go fine. I hoped she'd join me on our throne but she went back to pacing. What worries you now, my love? I asked. I hope she's not afraid of the whole vampires exist thing now that she knows, Bella explained. I want her to love you all as much as I do. She will need time to adjust. Be patient. She already cares deeply for Marcus. She will accept us. She will come to love us in time. Remember, you had time to adjust in high school, time to ponder supernatural topics while you waited for us, and time to come to love us as individuals after you arrived here. I coached. Bella finally joined me on my throne, curling into my lap in a way she didn't usually allow herself to when the guard was present. She was feeling truly vulnerable with Angela's arrival fast approaching. Marcus, Ella and I had discussed my past and how I came to learn about her in detail. She seemed to understand and even empathize. Jane, Alec, and Corin had quietly introduced themselves, and Angela had shared her own history. She seemed unafraid. I hoped that didn't change when she was surrounded by vampires on all sides. I prepared my mate that there would be a contingent of guards to meet us when the plane landed. I carefully explained that danger might exist until we were inside the castle. She asked pointed questions about where the danger was coming from, and when she learned of the Romanians, asked detailed questions about their numbers. Fear did not overtake her. Perhaps my young mate would be more suited to life in Volterra than I had thought. Angela's fear did increase as the plane came into land. What if they don't like me? She whispered. They will love you if for no other reason than I do. I hope you will come to love them too, in time. Angela gripped my hand tightly as we descended the stairs. Her step faltered when she saw how many had come to escort us home. Dimitri approached us slowly. Master, Mistress, welcome home. I had to practically tie Bella to the throne. She was determined to be here to greet you. Please, come this way. I chuckled, imagining Bella's arguments and attempts to join Dimitri on this trip. It felt good to be back in Italy. I hope Angela saw the beauty of my country on the way to the castle. Dimitri led us to the central vehicle. The guard got into their cars and on their motorcycles, keeping us completely secure in the center. They were being overcautious at this point. But I was grateful. I couldn't allow even the smallest risk to Angela. Dimitri and I took turns pointing out beautiful places on our trip. Jane and Alec described their favorite places in Volterra. Angela observed but didn't comment. Her grip on my hand grew tighter as our trip progressed. Nerves were overtaking her. I comforted her the best I was able, describing the castle and my brothers. Preparing her gently. Dimitri, our newest queen, was more innocent and quieter than Bella had been, even in the beginning. Angela seemed to radiate innocence, and she appeared almost frail. Curled into Marcus's bulk inside the car. She watched the surrounding vampires with quiet caution. We would all have to proceed carefully to win her trust. I reminded myself that she had just recently been brought into this world, and under a state of threat. Even Bella, her closest connection here, had been out of her life for 5 long years. It was understandable that she would be disconcerted or even in a state of shock. Marcus and Bella would help us ensure her happiness, or at least they would do all they could. I was sure of it. The underground garage appeared, and our small L parade was swallowed into its darkness. Angela seemed to relax as the guard dispersed, and she was left with a core team in the elevator. Bella was waiting when the doors opened. I had hoped she would meet us in the throne room, but I was pleased that she hadn't been waiting in the garage. The 2 queens embraced for long minutes. When they separated, Bella said, "I'm sorry, Angie. I hated lying to you at the time. But the Cullens painted the Volturi with a very dark brush, and I didn't want to endanger you. I knew you kept secrets, Bella, but this is unreal. I feel like I'm dreaming." Angela admitted. "You are safe here," Bella assured. In time, we made it to the throne room, and Angela was introduced to Aro'S and Keys. They both greeted her warmly. "Do you want food before bed, Angie?" Bella asked quietly. Angie just shook her head. "My stomach couldn't handle it." "Marcus, can we rest?" Angie asked. Marcus stood and escorted her from the room. When they were gone, Bella said, "I think I've me up with a fairly unassailable idea to explain Angela's absence. It has to be convincing enough to fool my father, who is a police chief and not as gullible as people think. I'm sure Angela's parents will have him investigate. It would also allow her the option of slipping back in should she need to after the danger has passed. Witness protection should be the perfect solution. Her seeing a crim. And being protected by the government gives us plenty of time before permanent decisions need to be made. My mate is an excellent problem solver. I'm sure Felix can arrange it." Aro'S cheered. Aro'S and Bella seemed to communicate telepathically at times. This was one of those times. They clasped hands and exited the throne room. They made their way to their quarters. I tracked their progress. When they were safely away for the night, I observed Keys. He seemed uncommonly thoughtful. I tried not to be concerned. Bowing, I asked if he had any requirements for me, then I excused myself. Keys, thin, GS had changed dramatically in the castle. For millennia, Aro'S sated his passions with random women or the rare companion while Marcus barely existed. I had Athenodora. She was adequate to my needs before she began exploring the world and involving herself with vampires that ventured too close to violating the law. Romance faded. What love existed faded on her side. I never allowed myself that emotion. Then she betrayed me, betrayed my brothers, and betrayed Bella. Her destruction was necessary, and I had to admit, if only to myself, it had been coming for a while. But now, after being the only one with a companion through the years, I found myself to be the only one alone. Vampires didn't adapt to change well. Still, I had options. I could take another companion, but I found that idea distasteful. I didn't want another woman who saw me as a king and didn't care about the man underneath. Women seemed drawn to me, it was true, but they seemed drawn to what I could offer them rather than who I was. I made the decision to adapt instead. It wouldn't be easy, and it wasn't a swift solution, but I would wait for the kind of love I could see my brothers were gaining. Love like that was worth the wait. Bella. Breakfast with Angela was a quiet affair. She seemed to still be in shock, only answered direct questions, and was eating automatically. It didn't seem like she was even tasting the amazing breakfast. I was worried. Even the chef looked concerned. Then, I remembered the girls' nights that Angela had sponsored during high school. It gave me an idea that I hoped would succeed. Angel. I was escorted by Alec to explore the library while I made my way to the throne room. Dimitri was my shadow, and his presence was very welcome. I felt very comfortable with my brother and guard. Alec, I thought, was a good guard for Angela. I didn't doubt that he was fierce in battle or that his gift was formidable, but he appeared innocent and unthreatening. His face appeared almost cherubic. Determination flared in me as I entered the throne room. My certainty of approaching challenges had grown. This needed to be handled before I could see to Angela. I knew in the same way I always believe. Edward would leave me and that Jacob would never be satisfied with being just my friend, that battle was coming. My only fear was that the kings would dismiss my concerns. I was not a seer. I had no talent in that direction. Still, I knew danger approached as surely as I knew my own name. I approached the thrones differently this time. I didn't curl up on Aro'S lap. I didn't even try. Instead, I stood before them like a supplicant. "What is wrong, my Bella?" Aro asked. "I think danger is coming, my lords, and we are not ready. You can call it instinct, woman's intuition, whatever you like, but I know it with the kind of bone-deep awareness that told me Athenodora was a threat when she acted like a queen. I would ask or even beg that you prepare yourselves. I need you to be fiercer than you were when hunting the Romanians. You need to be so fierce, so strong, that you could take an army, just the three of you. If I am wrong, you haven't lost anything but some time and maybe a few injuries. If I'm right, we cannot be caught unprepared. My shield is unreliable. It only lasts for a few seconds and leaves me weak or unconscious when it works at all. Someday I will be able to protect you, but we aren't there yet. Please," I begged. Aro looked to Keys and Marcus. They seemed to communicate silently for a moment. "I have been still for a long time, brothers. I have a human mate to protect now that will never be a warrior." Marcus said, "It could be fun to challenge each other as we did in our early years." Aro offered, "We have guards that I trust to protect us, but I also don't want to be caught unprepared when I finally have my mate." Keys's eyes lit up. I knew in that moment that at least he would enjoy this. "Finally, a challenge," he declared. "My love," Aro asked, "what do you intend to do while we try to beat up on each other?" "I want to get to know Angela again. I know she used to love girls' nights. I was hoping that Chelsea, Heidi, Corinne, Jane, Renata, Angela, and I could have one. I was thinking, pajamas, movies, girl talk, unhealthy snacks, and a lot of laughter might help Angela understand that you're all just people at your core, be a lot of fun, and rebuild the friendship we used to share. There may even be dancing," I declared. "An excellent idea. I want Angela happy here," Marcus declared. Each vampire had startled when I'd said her name. When I turned to them and asked, "Are you in, ladies?" They all nodded their heads enthusiastically. I smiled widely, and their grins rivaled mine. We exited the throne room in quick order. It took an hour and a half to make preparations. Even with the vampires moving in blurs. Mine and Aro's suite was prepared with treats, films that would probably make our human attendees cry, board games, multiple iPods, nail polish, and enough makeup to outfit a cheerleading squad. While they put the final touches on everything, I went to the library to fetch Angela. The library didn't seem to be providing the same joy to Angela that it usually provided me. She looked lost and small as she searched among the stacks. I knew she liked to read. That wasn't the problem. I tried to put myself in her shoes and realized that she was in Italy, far away from home. She was surrounded by unfamiliar vampires after just learning of their existence. Her only friend, whom she hadn't seen in 5 very long years, had changed drastically and in ways she didn't understand. Marcus, whom she knew but was still a mystery to her to an extent, had been busy in the throne room. Alec was unfamiliar to her as well. She had a valid reason to look lost. "Angie," I invited, "you need a girls' night. This library isn't serving you well at the moment. Come have fun with me." She looked at me, and I thought I saw hope in her eyes, but I thought I saw some uncertainty too. "It's all ready," I wheedled. "There are snacks, movies, games, music, nail polish, even makeup. No men are allowed, and no question is forbidden." She still looked slightly uncomfortable. "You can even wear pajamas," I offered. That caused Angela to finally crack a smile. She came to me and linked her arm in mine as we used to do in the halls of Forks High School, before my every waking thought became centered on Edward. Alec led the way to Marcus's and her rooms for Angela to collect the requisite pajamas, then he accompanied us to Aro'S and my home. At the threshold, he cleared his throat unnecessarily. You won't need me from here, ladies. I'm certain you have plenty of protection, and I don't want my nails or makeup done. Thank you, Alec, I offered. The men have taken up residence in the training room. I believe, if you want to join them. Angela's eyes widened in surprise when we walked into the suite. We'd even lit candles in our determination to make everything perfect. I had to admit, it was impressive. The chef had even sent up chocolate-covered strawberries to commemorate our girls' night of fun. Angela made her way to the bathroom to get into her pajamas. I'd already been wearing mine when I ventured down to fetch her. We waited for her to come out, and I asked Angela to pick the first movie. She chose The Notebook, as I knew she would. It was a favorite of hers. It seemed that this small detail hadn't changed with the passage of time. We all settled in to watch. In no time, Angela and I were practically sobbing at the story playing out on the screen. For a moment, it was like nothing had changed very much since our days at Forks High. Keys. We started by challenging each other to fights. It was chaotic and wonderful and had my venom pumping. I noticed in the midst of it all that Marcus couldn't keep up at all. He used to be fierce. He was a battle-hardened warrior when we'd met. His skill had surpassed Aro'S at one time, and outright challenges in the training room seemed to be frustrating him. I understood how he'd suffered, to the extent anyone was capable of understanding such loss, but in his inaction, his fighting prowess had slipped away. Bella was right, we needed to be prepared. All of us needed to be prepared, and he wasn't. Aro'S skill had waned as well, but only slightly. My concern with him had more to do with focus and distraction. It took a while, but finally we fell into a rhythm. Aro and I would spar, demonstrating techniques, and then I would break down the movements into smaller pieces for training. It started with just Aro, Marcus, and me. But as we trained, guards filtered in. Eventually, Dimitri offered to spar with Marcus, and everyone else divided into pairs. I taught for hours in between sparring sessions. The moves I taught ranged from beginner to advanced. Felix eventually paired up with Aro, and I was relegated to a supervisory role. Even the lower-level guards participated. I was uncommonly impressed. As the girls' night continued, though, Marcus and Aro got more and more distracted. Any bit of music, any echoing laughter, and they would completely lose where they were in their preoccupation to hear their mates' voices. I addressed the issue carefully, not wanting to embarrass them. Felix and Dimitri were sparring, and I coached them about distraction and focus. Even the pair of them were eavesdropping on the girls' party, so it was relevant. I reminded them that in battle, they couldn't lose concentration for a cry of pain, a scream, or a call for help without losing their heads. So why did they think it was acceptable to lose focus over feminine laughter? They both apologized sincerely and tried again, their focus completely on each other. Marcus and Aro seemed to get the message as well and began tuning out distractions. When I saw genuine improvement from all involved, I dismissed the group till the next day. Dimitri approached me after the crowds had thinned. He thanked me for the instruction and admitted he'd learned a few new moves from our efforts. He also said he appreciated that I'd allowed the guards to participate, admitting he thought they'd only be allowed to observe. I had never been comfortable with appreciative words. I found myself grunting "You are welcome," and quickly relocating myself to my art studio. Most of the covens of the world would believe you if you told them I kept myself centered and sane with oil paints, brushes, and canvases. I am seen as cold and ruthless, and no one dares to see if I have a softer side. Tonight I found myself painting a female shadow visible running through our gardens at twilight. The strokes were masterfully done, even I had to admit, but I wondered where the inspiration came from. The painting had almost painted itself without conscious thought from me. I knew no one who resembled this shadow. It didn't echo a former lover. It certainly possessed no resemblance to Athenodora, it didn't even reflect a female guard. Eventually, I put the canvas to the side to dry and painted a long-ago battle. I would contemplate the shadow later. Jane, Angela eventually settled into girls' night's time between chocolate-covered strawberries and nail painting. By the time we played board games, she was laughing, and she was the one to suggest it was time to dance. We took turns teaching dance steps from old tunes that had been saved on our iPods. Angela learned the dances more quickly than Bella did, but we all persevered until everyone had it down. When Bella and Angela showed us how modern people dance, I was shocked. It looked like seduction, with all your clothes remaining on. I was pleased when Angela started singing along to the songs while we danced. She was finally loosening up and letting herself relax. Even around us, She had a beautiful voice. When Bella joined in, I almost laughed. We had found something our queen couldn't do well. She was enthusiastic but didn't seem to be able to keep a tune. We sang along on the choruses and tried to keep up on the verses. I did laugh when both our human queens collapsed onto the bed, at the same time, exhausted. The room looked like a war zone with snack wrappers and candy bags everywhere, scattered among makeup and the rest of our supplies for our party. The vampires in the room straightened the mess. By that time, Marcus was tapping lightly on the door, looking to reclaim his mate. He carried her to his rooms with such joy and tenderness on his face that I might have cried had I been able. Heidi went to find Felix, and we went our separate ways for the evening. I stayed to guard the door. Our queen seemed to attract danger in even safe situations. I wouldn't let her find it without me at her back. Bella, my dream too. Night was not the dreaded run through the forest, and for that I was grateful. Instead, it was the escape from Jasper, the run to the ballet studio, and the events that had occurred there. I was strangely aware that I was dreaming, but unable to escape the coming horror. As I watched the torture James inflicted in the studio, I sighed, waiting impatiently for the dream to end. I watched Jasper tear James into small pieces and observed Edward trying to clean my blood of venom. The fact that I wanted to change seemed to occur to no one. The thought made me angry. I was able to gasp back to wakef. Only when unconsciousness claimed me in the dream. Aro held me in a firm embrace when I woke. I had hoped that our souls joining would banish the nightmares forever. I studied his beloved face to calm myself. I expected it too. I am ready to change, if for no other reason than to give my dreams no way to reach me. They are disconcerting. I hate them. I wish these memories would fade and take their place in the back of my mind where they belong. The Cullens are gone, living in their own personal hell, while we create a life I couldn't have imagined. They are the past. You are my future. We can do nothing about it, though. I can't change right now with Angie in the castle, warm and human. I would be a danger to her without a doubt. You are strong, my love. I know you will endure, but I wish you didn't have to. Aro admitted. We showered together this morning. The mood lightened, and the touches became intimate. We made love with me half sitting on the counter. It was perfection, and we both still smiling widely even after we both dressed. Aro escorted me to breakfast today. It surprised me and made me eager for the day's plans. We met Angela and Marcus there. I was pleased to see Angela smiling. She even seemed to be enjoying the food. I complimented the chef's skills. His chest seemed to swell in pride. I was curious what was coming next as we ate. Would there be more dancing? Had Dimitri created a band to play for us in his boredom over the years? I almost snorted at the idea. I could imagine Felix on drums. Dimitri didn't have the look of a guitarist, but I bet he would excel on vocals. Was there an especially heinous criminal waiting for us in the throne room? There were numerous options, and each was less likely than the last. After breakfast was finished and Marcus kissed Angela gently on the forehead, causing her smile to grow, Aro guided us through the castle and led the way to the human entrance. We decided, since today is supposed to be overcast and there are no supplicants to see, that this was an ideal time for a double date. Aro confided. We made our way through the streets of Volterra, and unlike my careless wandering with Jacob, Aro served as a guide. He pointed out shops, museums, and other attractions as we went. No one could deny that Volterra was beautiful and so ancient that history seemed to thrum through the very stone. I noticed several lower-level guards stationed throughout the town, all trying to remain inconspicuous. I resisted the urge to wave, not wanting to give away our surveillance. I was quietly pleased that we were being cautious while enjoying every sight Aro directed our attention to. Marcus took over the tour as we approached a brightly colored storefront. I was surprised when Marcus entered the store until I realized that cameras of every style and every imaginable accessory were displayed on any available surface. I smiled, pleased that my friend's needs were being seen to. Angela explored the store thoroughly. Her eyes lit up as she examined the tags beside the displays. They all looked similar to me. I didn't understand photography. I found shutter speeds and all the other setting options overwhelming. To me, a proper camera only involved pointing it in the direction you wanted and clicking the button. I understood the difference between digital and film images. Anything else was too complicated for me. But Angela understood all the intricacies. She reached out to caress a few different cameras lovingly. Choose what you want, my love, Marcus instructed. They're so expensive, Angela demurred. Trust me, I whispered to Angela. Get what you want. You don't need to worry about breaking the bank. Angela was hesitant, but her eyes lit up as she explored with an eye for buying. I watched on eagerly, glad to see her happiness. Marcus's expression was indulgent. He had her explain the various cameras and their differences. They even debated which technical specifications were superior. Aro'S stayed by my side, observing without commenting. When Angela made her selection, she sought Marcus's approval. Are you sure? She asked. It is so expensive. Marcus merely picked up the box for the camera she'd chosen. What lenses do you want? He asked. Marcus's education in technology and photography was impressive. As Angela selected a few lenses, Marcus selected extra memory for the camera. A camera bag was selected that could hold everything in short order. When we left the shop, I was quietly amazed at how expensive a photography hobby could be. Still, Angela was pleased, and Marcus was satisfied with the opportunity to provide for his mate. Marcus led us to an Italian restaurant. Angela and I had to rely on our mates to translate the menu. It was fun, but I made a mental note that learning Italian was first on my to-do list after my change. The food was delicious, but I ate too much. After lunch, Angela and Marcus wandered back to the castle so that Angela could go shopping for the clothes and things she needed with Heidi and Corin. I wasn't upset at not being invited. Shopping would probably never be a pastime I enjoyed. Aro'S and I rambled through the city, both content with watching the people go about their daily lives, content in their ignorance of the monsters that both ruled and visited their city regularly. Toward the end of our tour, we came upon a bookstore that specialized in used books. Aro'S laughed as I practically dragged him inside. We wandered the stacks. I didn't find anything I had to have, but Aro'S had a keen eye. He found 2 first editions. It was obvious he, proprietor of the store, didn't realize the value of the books he was selling. They were practically a steal. I assumed they were in Italian, given our location, but I wasn't sure. Why won't you allow me to buy you expensive presents? My love, Aro'S asked as we made our way back to the castle. I laughed lightly. You have provided everything I need and everything I want. I am the luckiest woman on the planet. Never doubt it, I declared as I pulled Aro'S to me for a deep kiss. Felix. Athenodora's telephone had provided many options for the mysterious Sylvester. It would have been kind of her to create 8 contacts and label them appropriately. Still, she was forever beyond questioning now. I would make do with what I had. I tracked Romanian movements almost religiously and even hacked into some of their telephone conversations. Dimitri entered. He was obviously hoping for news. Any progress? He asked. I have almost unlimited information, but none of it seems out of place. I feel like I'm banging my head on a brick wall. Bella is so convinced that danger is approaching, but I'll be damned if I have one tiny bit of evidence that supports her intuition. Everyone seems to be going on their merry way. The Romanians come close to breaking the law at every turn, but there is nothing actionable. They seem to have even given up the search for Marcus entirely. Perhaps they know he's back in the castle. I'll continue searching. I'm thinking of tracking the numbers on Athenodora's phone just so we can have a general location and track their movements. One of them has to be Sylvester, but there are no labeled contacts. It would have been convenient for her to identify our enemy. I admitted. Keep looking, Felix. New enemies appear all the time. Even if Bella's intuition is faulty, we might still identify a growing threat. Dimitri instructed. I'm on it, boss, I said. Tapping these mystery numbers might get us somewhere. I decided to try that avenue next. I kind of liked eavesdropping on potential enemies' conversations. I'd gained useful information that way on several occasions before. See you at training today, Dimitri said in parting. Keys was fierce beyond even Dimitri and my capabilities. I'd learned several new moves in the previous day's instruction. I was looking forward to today's session. Jane, wandering around the castle wasn't useful. I told myself that I was on the lookout for potential threats. I told myself that I might prevent a catastrophe with my efforts. I was even lying to myself. I was pouting. It was a behavior I thought I'd lost with my humanity, and though it was appropriate for my body, I considered the behavior beneath me. Still, I was pouting and hoped it wasn't obvious to the guards I passed. Eventually, I made my way to the library. A distractio, and from my thoughts would be a very good thing. To my surprise, I found Bella curled up on a couch. Her date with Master Aro'S must have concluded already. I checked the time, and my aimless wandering had lasted longer than I thought. Bella's attention shifted to me immediately when I entered. Her smile dimmed, and her eyes grew concerned. She tapped the space on the couch beside her, inviting me to join her. What's wrong? Bella asked quietly once I was settled in place. Wrong, I asked, trying to pretend that the current situation wasn't bothering me. Yes, wrong, Bella insisted. You haven't been yourself since you returned from Washington with Marcus and Angela. I didn't want to admit the problem. It seemed such a childish concern, and I tried to appear older than I would ever be and even sophisticated. Still, her genuine concern for me had me admitting the truth. You have Angela now. You have part of your past back. You two are very close, and I feel unneeded. We were becoming sisters before I left. I don't want to lose that. Jane, you are my sister and nothing, not 1,000 returned friends, is going to change that. Bella declared forcefully. You are stuck with me. Bella embraced me, and I was content that nothing had changed. My worries drifted away like Alex mist. I was hoping that you'd help me with Angela, though, Bella admitted. She doesn't know pain or loss. She hasn't had the kind of life that we've had. She's struggled, sure, but not in the ways that change you at your core. Eventually, she's going to be faced with reality, and it is going to be hard for her. She is an innocent, Jane. I think her grandparents are even alive. She's never had to experience true loss. Help me support her as you support me. I could do this for my queens. I felt necessary, integra. In a way I hadn't since I'd heard of Bella's injury at Athenodora's hands. I had experience with pain and suffering. I knew the terror of having your choices stripped away. I remembered the fear of the fire that had almost consumed me. I didn't let myself linger on that memory. It hadn't faded with time as the others had, but still I didn't dwell. I will be there for you both, I declared with confidence. Movie night tonight? Bella asked. Can we stop watching vampire movies now? I think it's time to switch to superheroes. I insisted. Perfect, Bella said. Do you have a favorite? We talked a while longer. And concern faded to amusement. Bella's laughter echoed through the room. It was a good thing we were the only two in the library at the moment, except for Chelsea, who was standing as Bella's guard. Time passed quickly, and soon it was time to report for Keys's fighting instruction. Bella joined me, insisting she wanted to observe. She would be fierce as a vampire, I was sure of it. Angela, I was beginning to feel more relaxed being surrounded by vampires. Their occasionally quick movements no longer made me jump, or worse, flinch. Bella's girls' night idea had been fabulous, and I had made friends. Still, Bella was very obviously at home here. She fit in, she belonged, she shone in a way she never had in high school. I remembered her as shy with rounded shoulders and a constant need to avoid the spotlight. After that phase passed, she always seemed to be trying to fit herself neatly into Edward's shadow. She was neither of those girls anymore. The double date with Aro and Bella had been very enjoyable, though, and I felt a new closeness with Marcus. Even shopping with Heidi and Corin had been a nice experience, although I knew Bella would have hated it. They took time to get to know my preferences and were very good about offering me options. They seemed pleased by my love of pastels and found endless choices for me. Movie night had even been fun. My laughter echoed through the corridors with the others. They were a funny group when they weren't being intimidating. Things were going well, I thought, but I found myself dissatisfied. I knew there was danger. In the form of a very old coven that held an ancient grudge outside the walls. It wasn't that I was unaware. I just missed my family, my friends, and even the children at my daycare. One of the girls, Ava, had a special place in my heart. She would ask for story after story during the day. I imagined that her insatiable need for new stories might guide her to become a librarian or maybe a journalist one day. I wasn't going to see that day, I knew it. I felt the bond to Marcus. I had always believed in soulmates, and part of me was shocked, enthralled, and enthusiastic that I'd found my other half. The pull was undeniable, it was simply a fact. Marcus was a kind man, and my feelings for him grew daily. One day, I would love him. It was as obvious as the ticking of a clock. Everything about him attracted me, even the way he spoke. Sometimes he sounded so formal. It was charming in ways I couldn't name, but when it came down to it, most of me felt like I was living someone else's life. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to grow into my new role here. I didn't imagine myself as a queen, but I hadn't imagined Bella as one either. It wouldn't be impossible to play the part, but I wondered if that was all I would be doing. Playing a part like an actor on a stage. The two versions of myself, one a queen and one a small-town daycare manager, seemed impossible to reconcile. Bella had assured E that if I felt the need to return to my former life when the danger had passed, it would be allowed. I was not a prisoner. My knowledge of the immortal world did not mean I was forever forced to be a part of it. She had told me that I was the first person, ever, to be given a true choice with approval from the Volturi. Even she hadn't been granted that. It was possible to return to a life of reading and finger paints, recesses, and parent conferences. The longer I stayed, though, the more separation from Marcus, even in my thoughts, hurt. I wondered if choice was an illusion in this situation. Marcus was a king. He couldn't give that up. It wasn't the sort of position one ever resigned from. If he did, he would perish quickly at the hands of enemies the Volturi had certainly made over the years. I would not allow that. I just didn't know if I could be truly happy here. Jane interrupted my grim thoughts. She was my companion right now. Marcus made sure I had a guard with me at all times when he was out of sight. They were even there on the periphery sometimes when he was in reach. How long did it take you to adjust to the immortal world, Jane? I asked. I was not changed with my consent, my lady. It will be different for you. I'm sure of it. Still, I'd say it took a bit over a year for Alec and me to truly feel at home here. Arrow changed us to save us from being burned at the stake as witches. That is why we look so young compared to the others. We were too injured from the townspeople's beatings to survive without the change. Our age limits us in some ways and probably made the adjustment harder than it otherwise would have been. Jane admitted. Did Bella fit in instantly? I questioned further. It seems as though she was born for this place. Not exactly. Bella has changed things to suit her needs in places. We have become softer and kinder under her influence in some ways. Movie night was one of the first requests she made of us. She wanted to really know us, not just rule us. The idea of a caring queen changed many of our attitudes. Still, you can't compare yourself to Bella. She has known of us since high school. She had all that time to adapt and accept our existence. She knew of our abilities for years before she came here. You've been dropped into an unfamiliar situation surrounded by beings whose existence you thought was impossible. You're handling it with grace. I want to belong, I admitted quietly after a minute of quiet contemplation. I just don't know if I can. Jane patted my back comfortingly. She promised to be there for me if I ever needed tea. Oh, talk to someone who wasn't Bella or Marcus. It made me feel slightly better. Dimitri. Paperwork had piled up in my office. Felix's reports from his wiretaps probably accounted for half of it. He, like the rest of us, was on the hunt to find this Sylvester and assess how big a risk he might be. I had put word out to all of our spies that we sought a vampire who went by this rather unusual name. I doubted there would be two vampires in existence with his particular moniker. Eventually, our spies would find something to point us in the right direction. Bella's proclamation of danger beat at me, though. I reminded myself, repeatedly, that while her shields would likely be magnificent after turning, she was not a seer. I reminded myself of it again as I started the extended task of reading, signing, and filing reports. Spies were essential to our work. Some of them wandered alone, preferring the life and freedom of a nomad's existence. Others were bound into covens so deeply that separating them would prove impossible. But they reported their observations to us without hesitation. Still others found it comfortable to be part of a coven, but would come to Volterra immediately if their direct involvement could help us. They all reported frequently and cautiously, so their identities weren't revealed. Volturi spies weren't welcome in most circles. Much like the human world, everyone had something they wanted hidden. And we were the last people they would want informed of their secrets. This was as true of law-abiding covens as it was of ones that skirted the edges of legality. I overheard Jane's conversation with Angela as I filed inside. Our newest queen was having trouble adjusting. I had expected, even anticipated it. Jane had reassured her well. I hoped Angela would allow herself to adapt and even let herself love our king. Marcus deserved it more than anyone else I knew. When the phone rang, I picked up quickly. I was expecting verbal reports from a few sources that I didn't want to miss. It was Felix on the line. His voice boomed through the phone like the tolling of a bell. "I've found him," was all he said. I made my way to Felix's office immediately. If he'd had nothing of interest to share, he would have told me so on the phone. Instead, when I walked in the room, he started playing a phone call where a mystery vampire was talking to Sylvester. They were discussing the appropriate number of newborns to take out a coven in Russia. I wondered if they were trying to pull the same madness that Benedetto did when he started the newborn wars in the southern United States. Find the mystery vampire. 2. We need all players to stop this before it gains steam, I instructed Felix. Some of the guys are already working on it, boss, Felix said. But it gets worse. Show me, I insisted. The next recording I listened to was Sylvester and another mysterious vampire. The two were planning how to capture one of our queens. I didn't stop to let it surprise me that they said queens in the plural. Angela was still a carefully guarded secret. She hadn't agreed to be a queen yet. I listened to them debate possibilities for a full 30 minutes. By the time the call was disconnected, I was fuming. This upstart expected to come onto our territory and steal one of our treasures. Had I not been so angry, I would have been mildly amused at the impossibility of the task, but rage ate amusement easily. I pulled out my phone and issued a yellow alert. All the phones in the room beeped when they got the text. Felix rose casually from his chair, and we made our way to the throne room. Bella sat up straighter when we entered. Perhaps we looked tense without meaning to. I reported Felix's work and his findings to the kings and Bella. I explained for Bella's benefit alone what a yellow alert was. We began to plan. I suggested we find this Sylvester and take off his head immediately. Keys and Marcus both looked like they might have agreed with me, but Bella spoke first. We have to know every vampire involved. If we don't, a new upstart will just take Sylvester's place. If you could end a war by simply taking the head of the leader, the newborn wars would not still be going on. And the Romanians would be nothing but ash. This seemed to stymie all of us. Finally, Aro'S spoke. This has not reached a critical stage yet. Devote time to discovering all possible allies of this Sylvester. Find out their hiding places, the covens they belong to, and don't leave out any detail, no matter how seemingly insignificant. Track locations and listen to all communications. Reassign some of the floating guards to the technological division to give you a wider range of coverage. We need regular reports. While you search, we will remain under a yellow alert. Is this acceptable, brothers? We will have to stay within the castle or the gardens for a time, but it is the best option that I see. Marcus agreed. I'll agree, as long as we can kill Sylvester and anyone who aids him eventually, Keys said. Keys had echoed my thoughts pretty closely. I didn't like troublemakers. I liked things orderly, and despite the chaos they caused, I felt pity for the newborns in the newborn wars. Their immortal lives were unacceptably short and tied to the human blood in their systems. I certainly didn't want that nonsense to start on this side of the ocean. Felix and I bowed. ND went to shift guards into the technological division, making sure we left no holes in our defenses. It would be a difficult balancing act, but I had no doubt we would achieve it. Marcus. I had not experienced panic since my last moments with Diademe. The feeling was uncomfortable and unfamiliar. I did not like the way it seemed to possess all my senses simultaneously. I was left with one goal, and I would not be dissuaded. I had to find my Angela. I walked out of the throne room, unaware of the voices asking to assist me or the others asking for my return. My sweet, wonderful mate did not know of the danger and in her ignorance might leave the castle. That a yellow alert would likely prohibit the guard from allowing it did not occur to me. I knew explaining the reality of the vampire world was long overdue with Angela. And I would face it as gently as I could without glossing over the facts. I also needed to begin her education about our history. She had a vague idea about the Romanians, but that was it. A conversation about our laws and the consequences for violating them wouldn't go amiss either. Before any of that, though, I had to find her and calm the pounding in my ears. I found her examining a statue. She was photographing the play of light and dark on its sculpted surface. I resisted the urge to embrace her and my hopefully well-concealed need to take her to the safety of my chambers. I calmed slowly as I watched my love study the way the light caressed the marble. Jane noticed me. I also saw Alec watching from the shadows. He had no doubt joined them when the yellow alert was issued. Relief filled me at their joined diligence watching over my mate. The urge to run with her faded slightly, and I began to feel more myself. When Angela was ready to move on and her camera had stopped capturing images, I approached slowly. I kept my composure, but I didn't pretend that nothing was wrong. Angela met me with a concerned look on her beautiful face. "We need to talk, my love," was the best I could come up with. Angela. Marcus was so serious when he approached me. His eyes were afraid in a way I'd never seen before, and his declaration that we needed to talk caused my stomach to knot and my pulse to race. Still, I went with him. Marcus had both my trust and my affection. We made our way to his study. Marcus spoke quietly as he educated me. The information was shocking and ultimately scary. I forced myself to listen and understand the overwhelming amount of information I had been given. Death seemed to be a very common conclusion for many crimes. I tried consider the issue from a vampire's point of view. Jailing an immortal, with their strength and speed, would be very difficult. Forced service to the Volturi as a punishment would leave us with many vampires who might be untrustworthy and ultimately endanger us all. Bella's solution with the Cullens wouldn't work with most vampires. Many traveled alone anyway, and from Marcus's description, most valued their immortal existence above all. The Cullens were an anomaly among vampires in that they barely accepted their immortal lives. Eventually, I had to admit to myself that death was possibly the only acceptable option in severe cases. I was horrified by the crime of creating immortal children. Children should be loved and cherished. They should be prioritized over the needs of their parents. Turning a child was unforgivable. Marcus's quiet admission that the reason these children were often created was that vampire women couldn't get pregnant made my heart drop. I would have to give up the possibility of children if I chose this life. It took some time to wrap my head around the idea. I was not ready to have a baby now, but there would never be a little Marcus running around with my eyes in his hair. It was an impossibility. Marcus seemed to realize I'd reached my limit of information I could absorb right now. He sat with me quietly. I knew he was available to answer any questions. But he didn't push me to talk in any way. I sat in silence for a full hour. I let the history, the laws, the darker side of vampire life, and the admission that Marcus, no matter his love for me, could never give me a child sink in. I imagined my life among the Volturi and my life in Port Angeles carefully and in a way I had never done before. Both had positives and negatives. Both offered the possibility of happiness. Both had their share of hardships. Only one option gave me Marcus, though. I had been fighting the bond since I met him in small and large ways. Giving in would be so easy, it would be effortless. He was my perfect match, and he would love me, literally, for an eternity. My grandparents would pass. I was lucky they hadn't already. My parents would pass. Losing one's parents during the child's lifetime was expected. My brothers would eventually pass. My friends would be lost to me, and Ava, my favorite among my daycare children, would eventually achieve her goals and pass away as well. Marcus would remain. Bella would remain. Aro'S and Keys would remain. The guards would remain. Could I handle an immortal existence? Finally, I decided that the only way forward was to share my thoughts and concerns with Marcus. Holding them in was doing neither of us any good. I feel like the closer we get, the less choice I have, Marcus. Part of me craves my life at the daycare, and I miss my family and friends. Part of me craves you, even with the darkness and challenges you bring. I feel torn in two. Marcus's voice was pained. He sounded almost hoarse as he explained, Parting after meeting one's mate is painful. I will not allow lies, even to soothe you. However, as you remain human and our bond is not sealed, it is possible. Most of the effects would fall on me, but it would hurt us both to an extent. I would allow you to leave after the danger has passed, should you need it. If you decide you don't want me, I can give you distance. We could provide you with quarters on the other side of the castle so that the bond doesn't grow more intense if you wish. Lack of interaction would stunt the bond's growth. It wouldn't fade, but it wouldn't bind you tighter. I would see that you were watched over for all of your human life, and when you met your end, I would search the world over for your next incarnation, hoping for a different ending. That hope, that light, would ensure I didn't slip into total despair. My silence unsettled even me. He would suffer in my absence, and I would be in pain leaving him. Yet I was at a crossroads, and indecision had frozen me in place. After a time, Marcus asked, "Would you like me to get Jane for you? She seems to be an adequate confidant and could help you clarify your thoughts." I nodded even though I felt like an ass for doing it. I needed Jane's simple silences and quiet acceptance. She put no pressure on me. Bella didn't pressure me by word or deed, but her opinion was very clear regardless. "My study is yours for as long as you wish it," Marcus assured me. A light seemed to leave Marcus's eyes as he left the room, but, even though it felt horribly selfish, I was caught up in my own thoughts. I had no comfort to share. Moments later, Jane entered quietly. I lost all control at her cool embrace and cried into her shoulder. When my tears eventually dried, I sat, lost in thought. I didn't ask Jane any questions. Marcus had outlined the vampire world to me with vivid clarity. I was blind to life outside Marcus's study. My thoughts took my total attention. At intervals, food was delivered for me, and I ate enough not to lose my strength. I did not enjoy the food, nor could I really taste it. It was simply nourishment that was required to continue contemplating my life and the vast turn my life had taken. Jane only offered one piece of advice in the endless hours. The Volturi would survive if you chose to leave us, my lady. Marcus would survive. We would all support him through the pain. But ask yourself if you would be able to truly thrive in the human world without him. You would know your soulmate was out there. You would know his location. Would you truly be able to stay away? You have been changed by this experience. Choices like these shape our existence even for vampires. I did not sleep. I contemplated Jane's words and every experience I'd had since my phone rang and Bella cautioned me of danger around the corner. I had been changed by this day's events, that was so true it was obvious. Whichever way I moved, someone would be hurt. Whichever way I moved, I would hurt. There was a loss no matter my decision. I'd never faced such a choice before. I realized in that moment that life before had been comparatively easy. Choices and consequences had been easy to navigate by deciding what seemed right, moral, and fair. I had bent to the opinions of others to an extent, wanting to make everyone happy. I had seen to my own happiness as well. But, even when my happiness wasn't my primary concern, I had never had to accept harm to myself from my own decisions. Marcus. I entered the throne room with as much dignity as I could manage. Bella came to her feet at the sight of me and was in my arms in the time it took her human feet to reach me. She continues to fight the bond, I admitted. She considers leaving me still. I offered her distance, should she require it, so the bonds do not tighten further. Bella sobbed freely into my shoulder. In that moment, I wished tears were possible for me. Aro approached us. He put his hand on my shoulder. Even Keys stood close. He didn't touch me, but his quiet presence was there. All is not lost yet, brother, Aro comforted. You knew this road was going to be rocky, and the danger in Port Angeles amplified that enforced this moment of truth. We were revealed before she was truly ready. I fear this may be the ultimate tragedy. I love her for who she is now. That her soul once existed in Diademe is no longer relevant. Surviving until I can find her in her next incarnation would be painful and might not yield better results. You will carry on for the possibility of her, if it becomes necessary, my brother, Keys insisted. I nodded. I had already accepted this as a potential conclusion to my and Angela's tale. I would survive, though it would be fraught with challenges and pain. The audiences that had been scheduled were postponed or rescheduled. The normal talk of activity outside the castle was silenced. There wasn't even a discussion of the Romanian threat or the mysterious Sylvester and his accomplices. The guards didn't falter, however. I could hear them moving about and going about their tasks with silence and determination. Heidi could even be heard, though she whispered, instructing others to prepare a room for Angela if she chose to distance herself from me. My heart dropped further. Still, we were the Volturi. We did not hesitate in our tasks, even when success seemed improbable. Jacob. I had researched investing large amounts of money with an intensity I didn't know I possessed when I arrived back on the reservation. Eventually, with the help of the pack and after many interviews with potential investors, I chose a frighteningly efficient woman with a huge portfolio of successes and more customer referrals than I cared to check on. With the money in her hands, we saw a steady introduction of funds into the reservation. The first change we made was the creation of a food bank. The pack ate a lot, and not all of the tribe could afford all they needed. Then, funds were allocated to the clinic on the reservation. Things changed slowly and steadily as, one at a time, the basic needs among us were met. I explained to Sandra, my imprint, all about my visit to Volterra. The unexpected kindness of vampires still surprises me to this day. The treaty and the money had both been unimaginable. I had expected confrontation, not acceptance. I began to accept the imprint. My Sandy had always been my future. We began discussing making it official with a wedding. I purchased a ring I knew she would love and proposed on the beach at sunset. I was overjoyed that she said yes, and we began to plan a ceremony and cookout that could accommodate both her friends and family and mine. It was a challenge to keep it within a reasonable budget. It took significant planning to provide for so many people, but it was what we both wanted and needed. Things were moving forward, and we intended to marry at twilight on the 17th of June. The pack continued patrolling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We even ran through Forks on occasion, just assuring ourselves that all was well. I didn't expect to find anything with the Cullen's Count and the Volturi's edict in effect. However, idiots and criminals existed even among immortals. Our runs no longer had the urgency they had in the days of Victoria and the newborns. Still, we kept watch. When I had offered Seth Bella's old motorcycle, he embraced me hard enough to crack a rib. It was sore for a few hours, and I was reminded of supernatural healing possibilities I hadn't thought of in a while as the pain faded. The only shadow in our lives was Charlie Swan. He had taken to appearing in places he had no reason to be. His gaze had become more focused as if he waited for us to talk about Bella, and he seemed to listen to the elders with an almost religious zeal. I kept my patience and my sympathy. He had lost his daughter, and he was looking for answers. However, our only respite from him, now that he lived on the reservation with Sue, was when he was working. We didn't want him gaining knowledge of the pack any more than Bella wanted him to learn of vampires. Billy's patience didn't stretch as far as mine. He had started distancing himself from Charlie. Charlie, in his determination, didn't seem to notice the rift developing between him and his oldest friend. Billy was hurting from the distance, too, but endured silently. The tribe's secrets were not to be shared. Bella's tale had been added to the tribe's histories, as had the new treaty. The story of Bella's time wasn't phrased totally as a cautionary tale. I insisted that the entire tale be told, including the ending. I thought it would teach our young that golden-eyed vampires weren't always good and red-eyed vampires weren't necessarily evil. Potential for both good and evil existed in both, and I wanted that to be represented clearly for future generations. We didn't speak Bella's tale yet. It was common knowledge to all, and Charlie was too inquisitive at the moment. I knew in my gut that something would have to be done about Charlie eventually. What to do escaped me, though. The pack and the elders were also clueless. I hoped that he was just workin' through the stages of grief peculiarly and would eventually reach acceptance. We would see. Jane. It took 36 long hours for Angela to seek unconsciousness. She slept restlessly on the couch in the study. I felt confident that I had done as Bella had asked me, providing quiet support to Angela in her time of need. I liked Angela, now that I didn't see her as interfering with Bella's affections. She was kind, soft-spoken, generous in spirit, and innocent to an alarming degree. Some of that innocence had been stripped away in the knowledge that there was no easy answer to her current quandary. I was curious to see if sleep would aid her in her decision. I hoped for both her and Marcus's sake that she chose to remain with us. Marcus needed her more than she could understand. I knew Marcus had told her of his past, but I don't think she comprehended the true brokenness of him without diadema. I doubted I comprehended the scope of his pain, and I had watched him live it. I also knew, a fact that Marcus seemed unwilling to accept. Angela would never be truly safe in the human world again. No matter what orders were issued, word of our almost queen would spread in time. The Romanian, and all the other enemies that had waited centuries for us to have a weakness would seek her out. She would become our Achilles' heel. Whatever vampires were sent to guard her would be overcome. The duty would be a death sentence. Angela would end up either a prisoner or dead at a vampire's hands. The only true hope for Marcus if she chose to leave was that the bond remained unsealed. Their souls had not yet joined. Her loss would not make his soul weep for death as it had before. Still, I feared for his sanity. I tried to ponder lighter topics as I waited for Angela to stir. I had yet to introduce Angela to Layla and her skills. The seamstress and Angela would both enjoy the meeting. That was something to look forward to. We also hadn't offered Angela the option of modernizing Marcus's space yet. That would be fun, and the space was in desperate need of an update. I suspected Angela would want to do more than add a bookshelf. It all depended on decisions out of my control, though. The castle was feeding into my melancholy with its silence. It sounded like a wake out there. Laughter had disappeared from all levels of the guard. Even those who normally passed their endless shift. Guarding the entrances and keeping themselves entertained with a combination of dirty jokes and tall tales were silent. I settled into a state of almost meditation so I didn't drift off into more unpleasant thoughts. And Angela stirred 2 hours and 23 minutes later. She looked frightful. Her hair was like a bird's nest instead of its carefully smooth coif. Her eyes ran black with melted mascara and eyeliner, and still. They were bloodshot from her sleeplessness and crying. Her dress was wrinkled and even had a food stain on it. She was a terrifying picture for a human. Her first words on waking, "I have to see Marcus," were somewhat promising, or that is what I told myself. Still, she would hate me if I let her appear in the throne room for the first time in this state. Instead on a shower and a clean change of clothes before she made whatever declaration she had decided on. Angela followed me to Marcus's room easily. I wish she would hint at her decision. Curiosity was driving me mad, but I kept my silence. There would be no pressure from me, only support. After makeup and hair were freshly done, she chose an exquisite dress in a pale purple. I congratulated myself on the small achievement that, no matter what happened next, she looked like a queen. Marcus was on his feet, already expecting our arrival when we entered. His gaze was a mixture of terror and hope, hinting at the complexity of his current emotions. I held my breath. Marcus. I had stayed away from my wing of the castle while Angela pondered and probably analyzed every life experience she'd ever had. I could feel the pull drawing me closer to her, but I denied myself even a small glimpse of her. I wouldn't make the situation harder for either of us if she were going to ask me for distance. I couldn't resist listening to the sound of her sleeping, though. Her even breaths drew me like a magnet, even as I prepared to deny the needs of my very soul to give her the life she wanted. I tried to sink back into the haze and disinterest that had been my life for so very long. Rejection would hurt less from that place. If I were numb, I wouldn't feel the sting so intensely. However, I was too awake. The haze that 8 years of my life away was not available to me anymore. I steeled myself for her waking, for more deliberations, and more analysis. When I heard her ask for me as soon as sleep released her, I stood. I almost went to her, but I denied myself again. If she were going to reject me, I would be stronger and hold myself together better with my brothers and Bella around me. I heard Jane instruct her to shower and almost cursed out loud while admitting to myself that it was better that she appear put together, too, especially if there was even the smallest chance that she might accept me. She would be embarrassed if she appeared in the throne room for the first time looking out of place. I waited, standing tall and strong, while Angela prepared for the coming conversation, whatever it might be. I studied the confidence of her stride and the steady beat of her heart as Jane led her to me. Both were steady and strong. She had almost certainly come to her decision then. At least I would know her heart's desire soon. More than just my breath stilled in the throne room. Aro and Keys were similarly affected. As were Dimitri and Felix. The other guards looked on in a mixture of hope and curiosity. Angela entered slowly, taking in our audience, then walked directly to me. Hope tried to fill me, and I mercilessly squashed it down. Angela's deep breath was audible in the room's stillness. I am ready, Marcus. I cannot, will not, be without you. I accept the bond. I accept being queen. I accept being yours, if you will still have me. Angela declared. I played her words over in my mind 2 times before I dared believe them to be true. I picked her up gently but fervently and spun her around in my joy. Cheers echoed throughout Volterra. I kissed Angela on the lips for the very first time. When she kissed me back, I allowed myself to believe I had heard her correctly. Aro'S voice echoed through the castle. He always did like the limelight. This is cause for joy, my friends. Fate is truly kind. Tonight we celebrate our queen's acceptance in the ballroom. All who are not guarding the perimeter are welcome. We will have champagne to celebrate and dance the night away. My brothers and Bella convened around us after Aro'S announcement. Congratulations and embraces flowed freely. I reassured myself that I was not locked in my imagination. My hand rested on Angela's waist further confirmed my reality. Heidi entered the throne room with brisk, purposeful strides. She informed Aro that champagne had been seen to, the piano was being moved to the ballroom. And that the cook had been informed that the queens required dinner early today. Heidi collected Jane, and they approached Angela and me with crisp bows. We must deliver Angela to the seamstress. If we're to have any hope of a proper gown before the party, Heidi told me. I was prepared to object. I would have argued, but the light in Angela's eyes at the prospect of being fitted for a custom gown designed solely for her stopped me. Angela went onto her toes to kiss me on the cheek. I will return to you soon, she promised. I smiled, and after Bella joined the group, they left the room in a storm of giggling. Dimitri. After Angela's announcement and Aro'S invitation, I made my way to check on the guard. They looked livelier already. I confirmed with each guard that would be on duty tonight exactly what I expected of them. I disagreed that this celebration was a good idea. We still lived under a yellow alert. There was at least one genuine threat out there, likely more. However, I didn't even try arguing with Aro. I would attend and pretend to celebrate while supplying protection to my kings and queens. Felix would do the same at my request. I was sure. I verified that my tux was ready and my shoes were shined. One never knew what would be needed in Volterra, then I went back to my office. I saw to the administrative duties of my job and simultaneously tracked the king's and queen's progress through the castle. We had gained limited knowledge of 2 of Sylvester's cohorts, I was pleased to note. That limited information would soon blossom into full records for them and reveal further rungs in the ladder. One did not try to start newborn wars alone. Angela's and Bella's discussions of dress color and style were barely audible from here, still, they were having fun and were safe for the moment. I did not doubt that Jane would put anyone on the ground who so much as caused the lights in their eyes to dim. They had more than adequate guards. Aro and Marcus were discussing Marcus's feelings after Angela's announcement. I tuned them out to the extent I could and still track their movements. Next, I made my way to the lower guard. I instructed the best of them that they remained on duty tonight. It was fine for them to dance and enjoy themselves, but I expected them to remain aware. Bella, observing Angela from Aro's side, was both amusing and satisfying. Angela hadn't been kidding when she said she was ready to be queen. So many people circled her seeking her attention. She circulated among the gathered vampires in a way that I would find suffocating. Marcus led her through introductions with everyone who approached. Angela was kind and seemed confident. The transformation was shocking. I was amazingly grateful that Aro had known me well enough, even in the beginning, to know that I wouldn't have appreciated a gathering being held like this in my honor. Angela shone. Her and Marcus's happiness and confidence radiated through the room. My pride in my friend grew. I sipped champagne and studied the room. The elite guard mingled but maintained total awareness. I knew they were ready to jump into action against invisible enemies. Some of the lower guard even seemed unusually aware. I'd guess they were on duty, even here. I looked among the vampires I'd grown to know and felt extreme affection. I spotted Layla glittering in a golden gown that set off her pale skin and red hair. I offered Aro my hand and asked, "Shall we mingle?" Aro smiled gently, took my hand, and let me lead the way. I guided him to Layla first. I introduced Aro to Layla. I didn't know how long they'd known each other, but I told Aro that Layla was the one to create the stunning red dress I wore in the light blue embroidered creation that Angela was wearing. Aro was generous with his praise, saying that she'd captured the personalities of her clients in fabric form. Layla was practically floating when we moved on. Felix was near, and I approached. "You aren't planning any pranks tonight, are you?" I asked with a smile. "Not tonight, little sister," Felix said. "But I make no promises about tomorrow. You look beautiful in red." We chatted for a time, then Felix moved on. I spotted Renard next. Aro and I approached. I told Aro about the marvelous meals the chef had provided me with since I'd arrived. I complimented the variety and taste of his cooking. I explained that ch meal was different and I never grew bored with the food. Aro thanked Renard for taking such good care of me, complimenting him on his care of me while I was injured from Athenodora's attack, specifically. Then Aro asked if all of Renard's supply needs were being met, or if there was anything at all that he needed. Renard seemed surprised and almost stuttered that Heidi was both efficient and generous. All his needs were being met. Renard escaped to talk with an unfamiliar vampire at the first opportunity. Jane approached from where she was looking over me like my own personal bodyguard. Her smile was gentle. "Are you going to spend the evening complimenting us, my queen?" "I want my vampires to know that I appreciate them and Aro to know how exceptional you all are," I explained. "We know you love us, Bella," Jane said. "You show us every day." Dimitri joined our conversation. "It is true, little sister. You show your affection for us multiple times every day. Make sure you save me a dance." Dimitri winked and disappeared back into the crowd. "The elites are the best," I confided to Aro. Laughter echoed from those guards and Aro agreed with me. "We chose well," Aro said with pride. I continued around the room, talking to the vampires I knew, complimenting them generously but honestly, and smiling proudly as Aro praised them as well. By the time the dancing started, Aro had been introduced or reintroduced to his staff. And he and the vampires in question were glowing with pride. Aro led me into the center of the room as Marcus led Angela, and we started the dancing. A few minutes later, the others joined in. The colors of all the fancy dresses spinning around the floor were eye-catching. The men looked sleek in their tuxes. It was a fabulous display, but most of my attention was on Aro. He was the most amazingly handsome man in the room, and I melted into his embrace. We spun around the room in graceful arcs. I was relieved that we'd had the dance lessons previously, and I was filled with joy. Totally unconcerned with anything in this moment. I looked to Angela, and she was moving in sync with Marcus as if they'd danced together thousands of times. When the song ended, I searched for the missing king. Keys was on the periphery of the party, looking contemplative. I winked at Aro and directed him to dance with Jane. He smiled gently at me as if he knew my plans. He held his hand out to Jane, who accepted it, and while they sailed gracefully around the floor, I approached Keys. "Dance with me?" I asked when I was in front of Keys. "I'm supposed to ask you," Keys said with a laugh. "Modern women don't follow along with antiquated gender roles," I informed him, offering my hand. Keys took my hand, chuckling. Soon his precise steps led me around the room. "Are you calling me old?" Keys asked. "Ancient," I confirmed. "You'll get used to modern women when we locate your mate. I'm confident that Eliezer's search will bear fruit. Then you will have your own mate too. Argue with about gender roles and all other subjects in the human world." "Tell me more about modern women," Keys asked. We discussed the human world, and I postulated about 30 different topics in current culture that Keys could anticipate arguing about. He seemed to become happier at the thought of a pending conflict with his hypothetical mate. Aro claimed me at the end of the dance, and Jane went into Keys's arms. "Thank you, my love," Aro said. "Hope keeps us going during the search." I nodded but didn't share further thoughts about Keys's state of mind in front of all of these vampires. I recognized a well-hidden sensitivity in Keys but didn't think he would appreciate me pointing it out. Dimitri claimed me from Aro first. He seemed to be the most confident male here besides the kings. Perhaps it was his station as captain of the guard. Felix, Alec, and Santiago all took a turn with me on the floor. Eventually, I was passed along to vampires that I didn't know well. One-on-one, I was able to engage in small talk without becoming overwhelmed. I learned as much about the vampires that danced with me as they would allow. I intended to know each vampire in residence at the earliest available opportunity. They each did important jobs. They were all honorable, dedicated, and efficient. They deserved a queen who knew their name and understood their concerns. I wished to be that queen. Midnight had come and gone when Aro claimed me again. My feet hurt, I was tired, and I knew that we had court tomorrow, but I craved one last dance with Aro. He pulled me into a close embrace. And we danced between the other vampires. I saw Angela on our way by. She was completely enthralled in Marcus's arms and didn't seem to be fading as I was. After the dance, Aro escorted me home and helped me unlace the complicated ties in the back of my gown. We changed into pajamas and fell into bed, leaving our formal wear where it fell. Morning would come early, and we'd deal with it later. Bella was grumpy in the morning after the scant hours of sleep she'd gotten. At least her cursed dreams didn't haunt her limited rest. Breakfast passed without Bella complimenting the meal. She was truly exhausted. We had to wait for Marcus's arrival. He finally appeared with Angela in tow. She was serious that she was ready to be queen. My respect for her began to grow. There was a trial today. It was first on our agenda. And concern appeared when I realized it was a vampire who had revealed themselves unintentionally to a human. This was going to be a difficult case for Angela and Bella. He human entered the room with a straight spine, even though she had a bandage on her head and a sling on her arm. The vampire practically cowered. I shook hands with both before the conversation commenced. The poor woman had been in a car accident. The car had caught fire. With the damage I observed to the vehicle through the vampire's eyes, I was surprised the woman was alive. The vampire had seen the accident, and his conscience wouldn't allow her to perish in flames. He revealed his strength by ripping the door clean from the frame of the car. Unfortunately for him, a spy had also seen the accident and reported his actions. It was truly bad luck all the way around. They were both honest about the events of the day. They didn't try to hide or minimize the strength the male had revealed. It was a pity they were both condemned to die. After they had told their tale and before a verdict could be given, Bella spoke. "I happen to know that Heidi is in desperate need of an assistant," she said. I couldn't see where she was going with this, but I allowed her to speak. "How about we consider this an impromptu interview instead of a judgment for now? Heidi needs someone smart, quick on her feet, creative, efficient, and strong. This woman has strength. I can see it in her bearing despite her injuries. Can we interview her for the remaining traits? The male is moral. It is a good trait. It can be combined with obedience and sharpened with training. Our lower guard could grow now that we have added more staff in the technological division." "You are going to bring chaos into our halls," Keys declared. "What do you think, Aro? Marcus, Keys, will you allow me this small thing? Would the woman be a good fit?" Bella asked. "Heidi." Marcus's voice echoed through the throne room. The vampire, Emil's eyes reflected a combination of hope, shock, and disbelief. The human woman's gaze didn't alter. Heidi entered in a rush. Yes, master, Heidi said with a crisp bow. Do you require an assistant? Are your duties beginning to stretch your capabilities in any way? I asked frankly. I am capable of handling it, masters, but the time it takes to supervise the humans continues to grow and could easily be handled by an assistant. It would free up my time for the fishing our queens will soon require. Dimitri, I called. Yes, master, Dimitri said from his place between Angela and Bella. He protected them both now. Growing our lower guard would be beneficial. I would, however, prefer to interview our guest personally before offering him the position. Are you willing to reserve judgment for now? Bella sat still, and Angela watched on, observing the pair on trial critically. My brothers and I shared amused expressions, eyebrow twitches, and eventually nods before Marcus broke the silence. We postpone the trial and allow Dimitri and Heidi to assess their capabilities. My agreement was firm. I had a grudging respect for the pair of them. The human was strong, and the vampire was moral. Bella was correct that both might be a good fit here. Keys's agreement was conditional. I agree, but I will not allow this form of intervention in every trial. Don't even try it. Heidi and Dimitri both exited the room with their new candidates. Felix took Dimitri's position guarding Angela and Bella from any perceived danger. The rest of the day was filled with greeting supplicants who had come to meet Bella. All expressed shock upon seeing Angela, and most expressed their joy that Marcus had received his miracle. Discussion of reincarnation and mating occurred in almost every audience. Gela spoke relatively knowledgeably for one so young, and Bella's poise was clear. One of our guests, an apparent nomad, concerned me. He exhibited no shock at Angela's presence, did not congratulate Marcus, and observed Queens with cold, calculating eyes. Instinct told me something was off. Felix apparently shared my concerns, because he restrained the man after a short struggle. Bella stood so that I could approach and read our guest. When I had read him, I felt tainted by the evil of his mind. He is one of Sylvester's many accomplices. This vampire is true evil, however, he knows names and locations that we have yet to discover. Please house him in the cells. I don't want to risk missing any small detail. I ordered. Cells? Angela questioned, after the danger had passed. Marcus set about explaining the holding cells to Angela. Angela, Corin, Jane, Bella, and I visited Layla after breakfast. This meeting was much calmer than our previous one. 2 beautiful gowns were sketched for me. One was a pale pink, and the other was a shade of green that I wouldn't have considered, but fell in love with instantly. Bella explained to me why we needed cloaks when Layla proffered the catalog of cloak styles. I chose 4 styles. They were surprisingly beautiful, and I could see why they were required. Jane insisted that Layla create 2 of each. From there, we went to examine my new home. As we walked, the girls discussed potential changes I could make, furniture I could add, and how Marcus's bathroom had been updated in the last decade, but could be changed if I required it. I studied my new home with a critical eye when we arrived and admitted that Marcus's mattress left something to be desired. It was lumpy, old, and even somewhat dusty. I decided to update the sheets and comforter too, but stay in the same color scheme. I didn't want Marcus to feel uncomfortable in our home, and I wanted to keep the tapestries that matched the bed. They were beautiful. Corin questioned me on what sort of mattress would make me the most comfortable. I detailed my requirements, and Corin seemed confident that she could find what I needed. From there, Jane and Corin swept off to purchase comforters, blankets, and sheets. They apologized that I was unable to come, but explained that my travel was limited with the yellow alert in place. Alec took their place as my guard and companion. Felix was watching over Bella. They laughed and joked together like old friends. I even heard them discussing playing a prank on Dimitri. I was drawn into the conversation, and so was Alec. We were logging easily while Bella guided us to a destination I hadn't been told of yet. When the door was opened, I was greeted with the smell of flowers and an almost blinding Italian sun. Bella and I explored the garden together. I studied the flowers with an artist's eye. Whoever kept this space from becoming a wild tangle was extremely skilled. I'd never seen so many beautiful buds in so many shades. We ambled along, taking everything in. When we arrived in the center of the garden, there was a blanket and a picnic basket already set up for us. Based on the look on Bella's face, she hadn't anticipated this kindness either. We sat and ate our lunch. Even the finger foods the chef had provided were delicious. Discussion was light. Bella and I were beginning to know each other for who we currently were, not who we had once been. It made me happy. By the time we finished sunning ourselves, our mates were with keys and the guard in the training room. I knew that our policing duties required the kings and guards to be fierce in battle. But I didn't mind that Marcus wanted to shelter me from the violence he could. It made me feel safe to know they were capable of protecting me, but I didn't feel a need to witness violence if it didn't throw itself in my path. Bella's opinion differed from mine. She was asking Felix if he and Dimitri would teach her to fight once she was more durable. Bella would be fierce, determined, and unshakable as a vampire. She wanted no protection from violence. Instead, she was determined to protect the Volturi single-handedly with her shields. If anyone could do it, it was Bella. I was proud of my friend, even though I didn't share her determination. I could see the benefit of being able to defend myself, but there was no place for me in a battle. Dimitri. It was time to check on the Cullens again. I allowed my gift to focus on their location. They were in Montana now, far away from everything and everyone. I wondered, only for a moment, how they were faring without either Emmett or Jasper to offer them protection. A nomad would be able to take out the remaining members. They were not fighters. Edward drastically overestimated his abilities because he could hear thoughts. He didn't understand that thoughts weren't always necessary for a real fighter. Alice's sight could have been formidable in battle, but I understood she'd refused to train in combat, even with the Major by her side. I checked on other covens of interests and other vampires I'd met. None seemed to be any place they shouldn't be. I was pleased that the known problems were behaving themselves. Even the Romanians I had met were where I expected. For fun, I tracked the Major. He was in Texas. His first family was with him. I wished him peace. It was not so close to Maria's territory that I could expect him to find danger. Still, Bella would be unhappy if he were harmed. He was obviously her favorite among the former family. I suspected, in the few moments they'd shared, he'd offered Bella genuine kindness. I added Maria to those I would track regularly. If she came after the Major, I would attempt to intercept her. She was one whose continued existence I didn't understand. Why the kings allowed the newborn wars to continue was a conundrum. Still, it was above my pay grade to wipe her off the map. I expected that someday, Bella would insist on Maria's end, and I would be there to make it happen. Arrow. My evening was devoted to reading our new prisoner's mind and recording every detail. Associates were carefully recorded, plans were noted, and I presented Dimitri with the full report. With the instruction to station spies in appropriate places to increase our knowledge while Felix learned everything he could through electronic surveillance. Dimitri bowed smartly and made his way to team up with Felix, no doubt, and issue orders. I was growing restive, and danger was growing. Sylvester's network was bigger than I had anticipated, bigger than any of us anticipated. We would handle it when the appropriate time came, but I began to feel worried. Bella was right. Danger was coming. Janus, the prisoner, was a truly evil creature. He regularly fed on children. Something even the Volturi found distasteful. He terrorized small villages for fun. He thrived on fear. I felt tainted by his memories and made my way to the shower. It wouldn't erase my memories, but it would make me feel cleaner. Janus would die the moment I was sure I had extracted every memory and understood the context of every detail. I was being overcautious, I knew. The man needed to die. Bella was typing away on her computer when I entered our suite. She was beautiful, and I wanted to kiss her furrowed brow smooth. I had an idea for a story, my love, she declared. I wanted to record it before it faded away. Is this story in any way autobiographical, Bella? I asked curiously. Bella's laugh echoed through our rooms. It might be about a man repeatedly finding his mate through time in her every incarnation. Don't worry, I have limited the vampires to darkness and even made them allergic to garlic. It is suitably false so that even if it were published, it would raise no suspicions. I was intrigued by the passion evident on Bella's face. I knew she'd written her experiences with the Cullens and the wolves, but I thought it was an exercise to release the emotions, not to entertain herself or the masses. I had thought of it as a therapeutic exercise. It seemed my mate revealed more secrets. She had a passion for writing for its own sake. I would like to read your work when it is complete, I declared. Bella agreed easily. By the time I finished my shower, she had put down her work and dressed in red silk and lace. She looked tantalizing. We made love through the evening and deep into the night. When passion faded into sleepiness on her part, she mentioned, I think Angela is close to being ready for the change. Could you and Marcus please instruct us on the details soon? I don't trust what the Cullens told me. I agreed, and Bella fell into a hopefully dreamless sleep. Charlie. Bella was not dead. Bella couldn't be dead. I wouldn't accept it. I couldn't. The thought was too painful, too final, too horrible to consider. I searched through my house and her apartment with a fine-toothed comb. No matter how I tried, I found no hints that she was suffering beyond the 4 months of depression I lived through with her, no clue that she was afraid of anything, and no evidence of foul play. There wasn't even evidence that leaving the apartment was pre-planned. I found a full $2,000 tucked away under her mattress. Her friends told me they didn't know Bella's address. I found that curious. Still, I questioned each friend, acquaintance, and coworker I could find. Even the barista in her favorite coffee house and the owner of her favorite bookstore were interviewed. I was shocked at how little any of them knew about my daughter. Bella had hidden her past both with Edward and Jacob as if she feared speaking their names. I learned that Bella had not dated or even seemed interested in dating through college and her time at the newspaper. My little girl had been hiding something, and I intended to learn her every secret. I considered the horror of the possibility that she had truly perished. If she had, she'd done so alone. I had been the only person on the planet, apparently, who had truly known her. I dismissed her death as impossible again and continued my search. I called upon every favor I was owed in countless departments. Even the Federal government was on the lookout for my bells. If she so much as appeared on a camera in any town in the US, it would eventually get back to me. Social media and CCTV were regularly searched for tie-ons of her name or a photograph of her face. I'd even contacted a friend with access to facial recognition software. Edward was beyond my reach. I couldn't question him. I continued searching for the Cullens, but expected that when they'd abandoned my daughter, they'd traveled overseas and made themselves a new home beyond my reach. I had no contacts in foreign countries. I was only a small-town police chief after all. That left me with Jacob. Sue repeatedly asked me to drop it. She begged me to drop it on multiple occasions. Bella was at peace, and I was making myself miserable, she would say. Seth offered what comfort he could. He had grown to be a good man. Leah, explosive Leah, watched my search with pity. I didn't believe she knew anything. She and Bella had never been friends. They were simply too different. But I had to believe that Jacob knew something. He was my last hope. I tried to talk to Billy. Surely Jacob had confided Bella's secrets, whatever they had been, to my best friend. He told me over and over again that he knew nothing. I didn't believe him for a minute. I persisted in my search. I attended bonfires and listened to stories of wolves and cold ones. I altered my path slightly and began asking Billy questions about the legends. He was willing to discuss these to a point. He told me they were parables for children. They were teaching stories for the tribe. I began exploring tribal lands. I approached Jacob several times, both alone and in the presence of others, to reminisce about Bella and try to pump him for the smallest secret. He played along at first, talking about the time that Bella was depressed and how she'd slowly come out of it. He even went so far as to tell me about the motorcycles they fixed up. It was a story I hadn't heard before, and I observed it with all eagerness. He admitted that he still rode his bike frequently, but would not tell me what they talked about in their long hours putting the bikes together or what happened after the bikes were repaired. Jacob had information for me, I was sure of it. I was at a loss for how to make him talk, though. He wasn't a suspect, and I was chasing a dream that my daughter lived, not building a case. I lacked both leverage and authority. I started eavesdropping on conversations between Jake and his friends in my desperation, hoping for any mention of Bella. I appeared where Jake and his friends planned to be, followed them around town, and even made excuses to interrupt them. Soon, Jacob only gave me pitying looks and refused to even say Bella's name. Sandra, Jacob's girlfriend, had no peace to share, or at least she didn't share it with me. She confessed that Jacob never discussed Bella in her hearing. My obsession grew when money began to flow into the reservation. Eve and I couldn't fool myself into thinking it had anything to do with Bella. She'd never been wealthy, though if she had been, she certainly would have provided for her oldest friend. I hoped that I might find something in the deposits, in the money trail, in anything at all that might give me leverage to force Jacob to talk. Tension grew steadily between Sue and me. We'd once been so happy. I'd allow myself to move on from Renee and truly love her. When Sue shouted at me that I was going to die in the search for a dead girl and that she wasn't going to be forced to watch, I quietly packed my things and moved back into my house in Forks. My hope of finding Bella truly died when Billy declared me no longer welcome on Quileute land. Jacob and his friend brought over everything I'd left at Sue's. Their faces were sad and serious. But they went about their task in silence. I was left alone after Seth embraced me in one final, silent hug. Marcus. I felt joy, hope, and a tiny amount of sorrow. The thought of Angela's beating heart stopping forever. Still, it had to happen for her to stay with me. Bella had been ready to transform for some time. She'd waited patiently for Angela to show interest. I didn't want to push my mate. But I agreed with Bella that it was nearing time. I educated them both on the change, the newborn year, and the many required adjustments that need to be made once one becomes immortal. The guards in the throne room shared their experiences with both the change and the newborn year with our queens. They were quite frank in their assessment of both the joys and challenges of that wild time. Angela seemed serene with the information. Bella, however, expressed her fear of her physical shield again. Aro, Felix, and Dimitri calmly reminded her of all the protocols that had been put in place to contain her should she become a danger to herself or any member of the Volturi. Bella seemed to calm down at the reminder. I continued their education, focusing on laws applying specifically to newborns and their sires until it was time for court. Our case today was a dispute between 3 vampires. Both males claimed to be the female's mate. The woman approached the thrones eagerly, apparently ready to have this matter settled. I used my gift with deliberation now. I offered Aro my hand. This is a tragedy. You are so unaware of your nature that you do know that a mate bond is more than affection, more than love, and more than lust. A mating bond becomes your center, grounds you, heals you, and becomes your everything. I said. I love her, one of the males insisted. Those of us who take lovers in the human way are called companions, not mates. Just like with humans, her returning your feelings is not guaranteed, and she has no obligation to even tolerate your presence. You gentlemen have both made nuisances of yourselves chasing her even over continents. The woman loves neither of you. No still means no, even in a vampire's life. Neither of you is her mate. There was once a bond of mild affection for both of you. It has been blackened and torn to shreds by your obsessive ways. Leave here and part ways permanently. Do not seek this female or each other again, or it will mean the end of your existence. Do you understand? I ordered. The trio nodded respectfully and hopefully obediently. When they were dismissed, Santiago guided them through the tunnels from the city. Aro. We settled into a rhythm of education, court, training, and levity. Girls' nights developed into a tradition for the queens and ladies of the elite guard. On one particularly uninteresting day, Bella caught Dimitri's gaze and said, "You don't play enough." "Pardon me, my lady." Dimitri asked. "You need more fun, Dimitri." Felix too. "You should institute boys' nights. Maybe consider whiskey, poker, video games where you shoot at things, and movies with car chases and too many explosions." Felix's booming laugh echoed through the room. The 2 men looked at each other, nodded, and bowed. "As you wish, my lady," they both said in their most mocking tone. Still, that night, and every week thereafter, a boys' night was had. You could hear the explosions in their movies or video games in the throne room. They turned the volume up so loud. The girls' night and boys' night tradition spread slowly to other levels of the guard. There was a certain envy of the elites and their closeness among the guards. Many thought that they could build closeness on their own teams with games, movies, and bonding activities. I had no complaints, and in truth, it appeared to be working. We learned daily about the danger that was approaching and started planning a strike against Sylvester and his associates. We also planned to move against the Romanians. I didn't know which danger would find us first, but Keys trained with us every day till my and Marcus's skills matched his. Then we spent the time challenging each other, so that we all became fiercer. A full month passed, and I was firmly settled into this rhythm. One day, early in the day, the pattern changed slightly, and it was almost like we all woke up. We were in the throne room, convened for the daily report about the threats against us. When Bella said, "It's time for the transformation. I'm ready to join you," Angela spoke in agreement. "Yes, it's time," she declared. They said it with the kind of casualness that I would have expected with choosing the week's board game during girls' night. Bella showed more passion, requesting her favorite meals from the chef. Still, the world shifted on its axis. "Do you have any final human experiences you wish to have?" Dimitri asked carefully. He too seemed startled both by the content of the discussion and the casual tone. "I want to experience the chef's cooking one more time and get drunk," Bella admitted. "I've never been drunk before." Angela simply nodded her agreement. You can't go to a bar because of the threat level, but I can bring the bar to you, Felix offered. I got bored a while back and went to bartending school. Bella and Angela both thanked Felix. Heidi appeared, having apparently overheard, and conferred with Felix and Dimitri about alcohol, mixers, and bartending equipment. I overheard Felix instruct Heidi that a speaker for music would be required. Felix wanted to see his queens dancing drunkenly. I covered my face with my hand. This was going to get out of hand. When I glanced at Marcus, he seemed surprised but pleased. Keys spoke, interrupting the planning of the coming event. I am going to attend, he declared. It did seem like a good idea to be there to supervise our young mates while they were inebriated. Planning resumed even more earnestly with confirmation that their kings would be involved. Heidi went off to make arrangements. All of the guards stared cautiously at Bella after she left. It is fine, everyone, she reassured. It is just time to join you in full pastime, really. With that reassurance, Dimitri offered his report. The court resumed, though everyone seemed more aware. Covens entered, provided greetings, asked their questions, offered their congratulations, and departed as they always had. Still, our routine had been shaken. And we were aware and waiting for the next mix-up. When dinner time came, Marcus and I ventured to the kitchens with our mates. We weren't willing to miss any of their remaining heartbeats. We were all surprised to find that the chef had created a sampling of all Bella and Angela's favorite dishes. He must have worked the entire time we were in court to accomplish such a feat. The ladies ate their way through the food, being sure to taste each option. Both women seemed happy, content, and without fear. By the time they finished eating, I was surprised they could move. I will miss serving you, my queens, the chef admitted on our way out. Bella turned back and offered him a hug, surprising the reserved vampire. I guided Bella to our suite, and she chose an outfit for the evening. I changed out of my suit and into more casual attire. Bella exited the bathroom in a red tank top held up by tiny straps and a mini skirt so short that it barely ventured 2 inches below her delectable bottom. Her eye makeup was done with a heavy hand, accentuating the size and shape of her eyes perfectly. She was stunning, but I was grateful they weren't going to a real club tonight. Bella looked far too tempting to be among males I didn't trust implicitly. Dimitri. Heidi had turned into a slave driver in the wake of Bella's calm statement of intent. The furniture normally in the recreation room was moved to the training room temporarily, and we brought in tables and chairs. Where they'd come from, I didn't know. I didn't even ask. Lights were installed to provide lighting effects. And a speaker was set up attached to an iPod that had been carefully curated with appropriate and recently released dance music. Even I was roped into helping. The elites, along with the upper and lower guard, all worked to produce a club vibe in the room. Felix set to organize enough liquor to get every vampire in Volterra drunk. Heidi insisted that those who assisted be allowed to stay and enjoy the fruits of our labor. So, for the first time, there would be a mix of guard levels celebrating together outside a sanctioned event. Once the setup was finished, we all went to get into party clothes. I chose slacks and a blue silk shirt. Heidi started the dance track, turned off the bright overheads, and turned on our newly installed party illumination when I was almost to the rec room. By the time I'd arrived at the bar, my red wine was waiting for me. I looked around at the results of our work and was impressed. We'd done a damned good job of creating a club for our queens. The PPER and lower guard who had assisted with the transformation made their way in. They came in ones and twos. Curiosity practically radiated from them. Everyone was dressed in their best party attire. Dresses were scandalously short, and soon drinks were flowing. Keys walked in casually, and things quieted for a few seconds. He made his way to the bar and requested a whiskey. By the time the drink was poured and in his hands, the noise had returned to its previous level. My mouth dropped open when our queens walked in. They apparently decided to shed their modesty along with their humanity. They blended in perfectly. Their shirts were tank tops, their skirts were short, and their smiles were wide as they looked around. Marcus and Aro'S accompanied them. Felix filled my empty wine glass before our queens arrived at the bar and was already mixing a special concoction for them in a metal shaker. Soon, Felix was providing mixed drink after mixed drink to our queens so they could taste a variety. Angela preferred something called a fuzzy navel, and Bella liked a drink called Sex on the Beach. Soon, Bella and Angie were on the dance floor and moving like it was their last night on Earth. The guards danced near them, around them, even close to them, but did not dare to touch them. Wise. The combination of the crowd and the alcohol could make their mates territorial. Felix filled my drin. K again while Aro thanked us quietly for doing this for our queens. I laughed as Bella grabbed Aro's arm and pulled him to the dance floor. Angela asked Felix for another drink. I mingled through the room, sipping my wine, dancing with a pretty woman on occasion, and keeping an eye on things. The Volterra could throw one hell of a party. This would be talked about for decades. Eventually, Bella was at the drunken laugh stage. She proclaimed, "This was perfect," quite loudly before passing out in Master Aro's arms. Angela had imbibed more and could barely walk, but kept her composure, asking Marcus if he was ready to leave. We partied until dawn, then went to resume our respective tasks, leaving cleanup for later. Bella. I woke with a pounding head and sour stomach. Before my eyes were fully open, Aro offered me Tylenol. I took them with the water provided and groaned. Aro offered a carafe of coffee next, but I declined it. I did not need coffee any longer. Soon, sleep and dreaming would be nothing but a memory. Part of me reveled in that. I would be forever beyond the reach of my cursed nightmares. That by itself was a blessing. I took a moment to ponder my life from Phoenix to now. It had been interesting, emotional, challenging, painful, and even crippling at times. I had loved fiercely, more than once. Aro returned my love measure for measure. I would never be left alone to suffer in silence again. I acknowledged my accomplishments, and they were many. Even when faced with inevitable demise, I persevered and made something of myself. I didn't curl up into a ball. I'd attended classes, I'd learned, I'd achieved. And I'd held a very satisfying job at the end of it all. I could have handled my social life better, but pardoned myself, as I chose distance for their safety, not mine. My only regret was leaving Charlie. Still, he was happy with Sue, and I was at peace with my decision. Life in Volterra hadn't been a fairy tale, it had challenges of its own, but I had gained everything I could ever ask for. I had Aro, I had Marcus, I had Angela, I had keys. I had the guards. I was blessed beyond measure because none of that was going to change. I would have them for an eternity. Aro was mine for an eternity. The Volterra, the world's most feared coven, had provided love and family for me. The Cullens had offered me barely the appearance of affection in comparison. I showered and dressed for the last time as a human. I wore lounge wear. There was no need for pretty dresses during the coming ordeal. You are quiet, my love. Are you afraid? Aro questioned quietly. No, I assured him. I just have one last thing I have to do, then I am beyond ready to join you in our eternity. Aro dressed and waited patiently for me at the door. It was clear that he was joining me, wherever I was going. I marched with more determination than I thought I possessed while fighting a hangover to Felix's office. I was lucky to arrive while Dimitri was visiting. I pulled them both to the side. Even though I realized that privacy was a very thin illusion in Volterra. I need a favor, I admitted to my brothers. Anything, they said in one voice. I need you to promise me that you will both be there when I wake up and that no matter what, you will not let me injure Aro in a fit of newborn madness. I would forgive harm to me instantly if it protected him. I admitted. They both studied me closely for a moment. I spoke in the silence, please. I need this. We promise, they said together. I was confident they meant it and took both of their hands, squeezing them as tightly as a human could. See you on the other side. Brothers, I said calmly. They nodded seriously, and I allowed Aro to lead me back to our suite. I was happy. I was content. I was relaxed. I felt safe, and more importantly, I was confident of Aro's safety. We undressed in the suite. I touched Aro with human hands for the last time, kissed him with human lips. When we climaxed, he bit me. There was no warning or plan. It occurred as it should. The burn began, and I tried to focus on my memories. Both the good and the bad had shaped me into the woman Aro loved. I didn't want to lose anything. Angela, last night was awesome, was my first thought as I struggled to consciousness. My head was pounding. When I opened my eyes, I saw Marcus. He was offering me pain pills and a glass of water. I took them eagerly. I even had a cup of coffee from the carafe Marcus was holding. I wanted to remember the taste, the smell. Are you sure you want to do this today? Marcus questioned. I don't want to rush you. I smiled, and gently ran my fingers through his hair. I choose you. I will choose you every day. Joining you in eternity is a necessary stage of the process. I'm a little afraid of the pain, but I will endure. Everyone here survived it. I just have one final request. Anything, my love, Marcus promised. I want to seal the bond before you change me. Make love to me, my mate. Marcus worshipped every inch of my body. When he finally entered me, I didn't know such bliss was possible. He drove me higher and higher toward an unseen peak. When I fell over the edge, Marcus was there to catch me. I felt his bite, but the pain was ultimately lost in pleasure so intense I didn't think it could be real. When the fire came, I reminded myself that I only had to endure for 3 days. Then, Marcus wouldn't ever allow me to feel pain again. I tried to focus on my memories. I tried to focus on the past, but the only thing I could truly hold on to was Marcus's face, his touch, and his love. I would survive for him. Dimitri. It was a struggle to accomplish anything while our queens experienced the change. It was even harder to get the other guards to see to their tasks. I had to force myself to supervise the Aro'S levels closely when I wanted to be with Aro, assuring his safety and watching Bella meet her destiny. Angela's cries could be heard, strong and steady, echoing through the castle. Bella seemed to be trying not to cry out. Her cries were intermittent with long breaks between. I worked without ceasing so that I could get ahead of the curve and be there for her. I worried that something was going wrong. I worried that she was fighting the change. I worried that her body was rejecting the venom. 1,000 different possibilities occurred to me, and none of them were good. I loudly proclaimed, when my work was finished, that anyone not performing their tasks to the best of their ability would spend the next year guarding the tunnels. It was by far our most boring post, and I could practica. Feel the shock flowing through the guard. I didn't issue threats. It wasn't my way, but on the rare occasion I did, they were confident that I'd follow through. Bella's cries had ceased again by the time I arrived at Aro'S door. I knocked, and at Aro'S acknowledgement, I entered. Bella was there, dressed in the comfortable clothes she'd chosen for the change, but something was off. It was like, there was an energy that radiated from her. I'd never experienced it before. With Aro'S permission, I examined Bella. You could feel the energy or whatever it was coming from her 6 inches away from her skin. I knew Aro wanted to caress and comfort his mate, but I feared that at any moment, that energy might solidify into her physical shield. I now suspected that her mental shield was the reason for her intermittent cries. Perhaps it was blocking at least some of the pain for stretches at a time. I shared my educated guesses with Aro. He absorbed the information but did not move. I tried again. The mistress wouldn't forgive herself if her shield caused you harm during her change, master. Aro joined me against the wall to wait and see what happened next. Aro kept up a steady stream of reassurance to Bella on the off chance she could hear. I comforted myself that it was the best we could do in this unusual situation. Chelsea, Corin and I came to our limit on the second day of Angela's suffering. Marcus needed our assistance, and Angela would require care when she woke up. We made our way to the royal wings. On our way, we ran into Felix, Alec, and Jane. Felix and Jane continued to Aro's suite while Alec joined us. Both of our queens would be well protected and cared for in their first hours. Corin was the first to knock on Marcus's door. We were invited in. Chelsea spoke first, amazed by whatever she was seeing. Marcus, her bond to you grows even while she is unaware. Marcus smiled softly, and his eyes slipped out of focus, observing Angela's many bonds. When his eyes focused, his smile grew. Angela's change was going as it should. It was only a matter of time till Angela woke to us. Felix, Jane and I rushed into Aro's room at the sound of wood splintering. Bella's physical shield was visible a few feet away from her. Aro was maintaining a steady stream of soothing words even from his position with Dimitri on the far wall. Bella's change was unusual, but we should have expected an odd experience from her. She appeared to be in no pain. Even her moans were gone. Through the blue tint of her physical shield she appeared to be sleeping. We joined Dimitri and Aro against the far wall, but we watched closely for any changes. Bella's waking was as unusual as her change. The shield disappeared with the last beat of her heart and she sat up. She appeared calm and collected. I didn't trust it. I stood in front of Aro. Dimitri joined me. Jane made her way to stand in front of the window. They were a common exit for newborns in their confusion. Bella stood, slowly for a vampire, and studied all of us. Aro, was her first word. I insisted that Bella both grip my wrist and embrace me before I cleared the way for her to approach Aro. She touched me as if I were spun glass. I was confident she could touch Aro without injury. They embraced, and their lips met in a first kiss where Bella was the one having to be cautious. When they broke apart, Aro was stroking Bella's hair. When Bella grasped her throat, we all knew it was time to move. Bella needed to feed, and we didn't want thirst to lead to a newborn tantrum. We made our way through the castle into the lower levels. The guards cleared the way for us. Bella smelled the blood about 5 feet from the door. She didn't rush by us as I expected her to, instead she clarified, "It's for me." When we nodded, she allowed herself to act on her instincts. The door was pulled free of the frame in her haste, and the condemned men inside were quickly drained. Still, she drank relatively neatly. Blood covered her boot. The men remained in one piece with a clean bite in the neck. I remembered the mangled messes of my first meals. It had been unsightly. Bella hugged us all after her meal was drained. She was as affectionate in this form as she had been as a human. Bella paused when Jane stepped away from her embrace. "Sister?" Bella questioned. "I'll just burn these clothes," Jane declared. "Come here." Bella was in her arms in a second. "Chelsea." Angela woke with a snarl. In less than a second, she was crouched at the head of the bed, studying us and searching for danger. Marcus spoke calmly, quietly, with calming words. And after a few moments of quiet standoff, Angela seemed to recognize us. She walked to Marcus without a word and placed her hand on his chest. A warm white light surrounded Marcus. We were all frozen in place, unsure of what to do. Removing Marcus from her touch would surely cause a tantrum, but what if she accidentally harmed him? We stood still in our shock, carefully observing. When the light faded, the couple embraced. My Angela is a healer. She has taken the pain from the deepest recesses of my soul. Angela stepped away from Marcus and approached Alec. "You hurt," she declared and placed her hand on his chest. The light engulfed him. It stayed longer this time, and I wondered why. When the light faded, Alec raised his sleeves one at a time. The remaining scars from the fire on the day of his turning were gone. "She heals both physical and emotional damage," Alec declared reverently. Angela grasped her throat, and Marcus led her to the lower levels. We passed by the doorless room that was Bella's feeding chamber. It was being cleaned. Angela sniffed, but Marcus informed her that it was the smell of dead blood. She escaped our hold when she arrived at her room. There would be yet another door to replace, I thought, as Angela fed on every criminal in the room. The mess was something when she was finished. The corpses were mangled and broken. Blood had somehow even made its way onto the ceiling. I pitied the cleaning staff, but it was about on par for a newborn's first feeding. Marcus led Angela back to their suite. Sounds of their lovemaking echoed through the castle. They did not require a guard at present. We went back to work. Dimitri. After an initial adjustment where mating bonds were celebrated, confirmed, and sealed, the differences in our queens became apparent. Bella insisted on long hours of combat training and shield control instruction. She was determined to become our protector. I thought that her inability to defend herself in human form was fueling her current determination. Along with her worry for us, Angela insisted that Marcus introduce her to every single person residing in the castle so she could heal old injuries and take soul-deep pain. Some people, Angela could heal. And the results were spectacular. Some, typically those with lesser hurts, Angela's gift didn't respond to. For instance, my body was riddled with scars from my time with Amen and my time with the Volterra. The wounds did not affect me in any emotional way, though, and Angela felt no urge to heal me. Angela's gift seemed to be instinctive rather than something she actually controlled. I thought that might change in time. Angela and Bella's first meeting was stilted. Both women were a bit out of control, and the elites were on hand just in case. Once greetings were out of the way and the pair had embraced, Angela said, "You hurt still, but I cannot take it from you." "I'm sorry." Bella explained her lack of control over her mental shield, and Angela seemed contemplative. For the most part, the queens weren't together. They had varied interests and were too volatile at the moment to be left together alone. A month passed, and some of the initial newborn madness faded. The queens were now safe to leave alone with their mates, and when the kings and queens were gathered, Marcus was usually teaching them some topic related to their new vampire life. Bella destroyed so many doorknobs that they were all replaced with a handle she could push down on to enter or exit a room when the elite guard weren't there to take care of that detail for her. Jane attached herself to Bella's side, becoming a combination of lady's maid and assistant. Corin was the one Angela became closest to in her new life, and Corin did her best to ease Angela through the difficulties of her new life. Alec was often on hand. He was quite close with Angela, but understood that his queen needed a woman's touch that he couldn't provide. Felix. My research on Sylvester's network was complete. I knew the covens involved, the individuals who were guilty in truth, and those who could barely be considered guilty by association. I knew which vampires rested in a gray area by being aware of the actions and not trying to stop them. It would soon be time to prepare for battle. Spy reports came into Dimitri regularly. Around the castle, fear of the unknown was replaced by anticipation of wiping out the building threat. When I completed all my tasks for the day and my team was celebrating all their hard work, I took just a moment to check on Swan. I did this fairly regularly so I could assure Bella when she asked that Charlie was as happy as could be and well supported. I froze when I found a record that Swan had requested a divorce through the courts. Digging deeper than I probably should have, I found that Charlie had even been exiled from the reservation. I said a silent apology to Jacob Black. I'd gained the information by hacking his email. People really should choose their passwords with more care. It wouldn't have stopped me, but it would have provided a challenge. Wolfie1 was a ridiculous password for a shapeshifter. I refocused away from Jacob's ridiculousness and back on Charlie. The double hit of losing his wife and the reservation must have been catastrophic. Bella's father was unsupported and alone. I researched my last hope by searching the police records and found that Charlie had been required to take a leave of absence from work for mental health reasons. I pitied the man. He'd sounded like a good man in Bella's stories. They'd certainly become close after the Cullens left her to rot. But now that I had this information, what did I do with it? Bella was a newborn and dead to the citizens of Forks. No matter what she wanted, he couldn't turn up on his door to whisk him away. She would decimate the townspeople for their blood in the attempt, ultimately killing even her father. I searched out Dimitri for advice. Battle was coming, and if we were going to help Swan, we would have to be both fast and careful about it. Bella would insist on doing something if she knew. It was best that we had solid options to offer her. Dimitri and I sorted through what we saw as our options, then we scheduled a private conversation with Aro'S. Bella would need his support and guidance as well as his leadership, once this information became known in the castle. I was afraid her father's fall would break Bella. She would need us all. We would pull together for her. Bella hadn't had many ties to the human world, but the ones she'd had absolutely refused to break. Once Aro'S heard the news, we were ordered to procure an apartment in town and furnish it to a comfortable standard. I set the lower guard on furnishing the space aft. I chose a comfortable apartment over a bakery. I had all the utilities, as well as television and blazingly fast internet, turned on. The lower guard was to provide cutting-edge technology for the space. It was close to the castle. Not that it really mattered. It would be months before Bella could be out among Volterra's citizens. Our next step was explaining the situation to Bella. Elite's conva, and in the training room with the kings. Angela was watched over elsewhere by a very solicitous Corin. We didn't know what Bella's shield would do when she was confronted with the fact of her father's fate. She had been correct that her physical shield was somewhat unpredictable. Strong emotions seemed to affect its strength and size. When Bella walked into the room and saw the gathering, she froze. Aro'S approached her calmly and explained softly the many problems that her father had experienced. Bella's shield exploded from her, throwing us all into the walls in her panic. Keys was the first to recover and the first to react. Bella, get yourself under control. We are not going to leave your father to suffer. You know us better than that. Keys commanded. His voice was calm but forceful, and Bella responded better than I hoped. Her shield collapsed. We all comforted her and offered our reassurances that she hadn't injured us. The dents remaining in the stone wall told another story, but it was important to comfort Bella. Keys continued to speak. We have purchased an apartment for Charlie in town. We intend to fetch him from Forks and bring him home. He has nothing left in Forks now. Bella's eyes searched each of ours hopefully. Her gaze landed on Aro'S. Please be the one who goes to get him, Aro'S. I know that you will require guards. I know that the bond will hurt while you are away, but you can shake his hand. Read his thoughts, and tell him the things he most needs to hear. I anticipated your request, my love. The plane is being fueled, and Jane and Alec will accompany me. You must call young Jacob and inform him that vampires will be in Forks to collect your father. Assure him that we will harm no one. Aro'S declared. Bella was incapable of handling a cell phone, so I guided her gently to my office. Got an outside line, and entered Jacob's cell phone number. The fury and vitriol that passed down the phone line when Jacob Black answered the phone surprised me. Our queen was gracious and kind. Well, she was on a normal day. After a solid telling off, Bella informed Jacob that the Volturi would be collecting Charlie. You should have told me when Sue kicked him out, Jacob. And you should have definitely told me when Billy banished him from the reservation, Bella insisted. I trusted you to see to Charlie in my stead. You failed me, Jacob. Apparently, the wolves Little better than Cullens in providing long-term support. Bella accused. I thought that last dig probably struck good and hard. Bella didn't wait around for offered apologies and excuses. Though, being compared to the Cullens in any way would be a serious insult to the wolves. Bella cracked the plastic on my phone, slamming down the receiver. I examined it. It was only mild damage. I would replace the phone at a later date. Bella sat quietly in my guest chair, breathing hard. I held my silence till she was relatively calm and her breathing had steadied. Charlie will be watched over and protected. I know this isn't what you wanted for him, but it seems he would do anything to be at your side. I'm angry, Bella admitted. Controlling my shield when I'm angry is difficult. I can tell, little sister. And the wolves deserved your harsh words. You said nothing untrue. Can we train, Dimitri? I need to get rid of these emotions somehow. Bella practically begged. Felix met us at the training room, and we sparred. We even taught our queen some new moves in the process. Bella was becoming more fierce with each training session. My pride in my queen's abilities and ferocity grew. Charlie. The knock at the door made me jump. I wasn't expecting anyone. There was no one left to visit me. It was probably just a salesman of some variety. I considered not answering the door, but the silence was about to swallow me. Any voice was a welcome respite from this. The television didn't offer the comfort it used to. I kept it off most of the time now. I got up and made my way to the front door. I turned on the porch light. Dusk had fallen without me noticing, and looked at the trio on my porch. Objectively, the man was somewhat attractive. His features were sharp and even. He had 2 teenagers with him. They looked like adolescent angels. They appeared non-threatening, innocent even. The man offered me his hand, and I shook it. The man's eyes seemed to soften. If I had to guess, the emotion in them was pity. I invited the trio in. They had something to say. It would be better than hearing my own thoughts for half an hour. I bring news of Bella, Charlie. The man said. With that simple sentence, he'd surely gotten my attention. Please, I'll do anything, I begged. That is unnecessary, Charlie. My name is Aro. This is Jane and Alec. We can all assure you that Bella is safe and well. Except for her concern for your unhappiness, she is even quite happy. You've spoken to her? I asked. This was the only break I'd been given. I wasn't going to waste it. I speak to her frequently. Jane is her closest friend. Alec cares for her deeply as well. She has our love and our loyalty. I promise she is in excellent care, even in our absence. Aro assured me. Where is she, please? I asked. We reside in a small city within driving distance of Pisa, Italy. I am sorry that Bella was unable to join us here. She has experienced some changes and is not fit for travel at the moment. However, we have come in her stead to bring you to our fair city. All of your questions will be answered, and all of your needs will be seen to. You have no one left here, Charlie. All that Bella hoped for you has fallen away. It is time to begin a new life. I sat and observed the 3 people on my couch. Aro was absolutely right that everything that had ever made Forks my home was gone. My job would even be glad to see the back of me. The house was paid off, and I would qualify for early retirement, I'd bet. I need to speak to Bella, even briefly. I need to hear my baby girl's voice again. Jane, as if she had been anticipating my request, punched a single button on her phone. She spoke quickly to whoever answered and passed the device to me. It was quiet for a minute, then I heard Bella's voice in my ear. It was slightly different, clearer somehow, but it was definitely her. Daddy, she said. I'm here, baby, I promised. Trust Aro, Dad. I trust him with my life. Jane and Alec are great. I got my stubbornness from you. But don't stay in Forks all alone. Come to Italy with Aro. Make a home here. I love you. I studied the trio on my couch again. Bella was safe and wanted me with her. I had thousands of questions. But only a few were of immediate importance. My decision was made and had been made since I'd heard Bella's name. What do? I asked Aro. You pack, Charlie. Mementos of your life here are more important than clothing. You will require a different wardrobe for life in Italy. From there, we go to a private plane that will deliver us to Pisa. A new home is ready and waiting for you, Charlie. I don't have money for travel. For a new wardrobe, or a new life, I said hesitantly. I have a technical genius who is securing your pension for you as we speak. Your new home has already been purchased. It is furnished already, and clothes will be provided once we know your sizes. It would have already been done, but Bella didn't remember your clothing sizes to share with us. I will arrange for your current house to be packed up, put on the market, sold, and the money added to your account. You have my word that all your needs will be seen to. You will want for nothing. Aro assured. I went to my closet and got the boxes that were stored there. They were collapsed for storage. I picked up the tape dispenser and began to put the boxes together. Alec took the job off my hands, providing me with boxes ready for filling. I carried 2 boxes up to my room. I filled one with enough clothes to get by and the other with Bella's old drawings. I added photos of Sue and my old friends from La Push. I topped it off with ancient photos I'd never been able to let go of, featuring Renee. While I'd been upstairs, Jane, Alec, and Aro had removed treasured photographs from the mantel and the walls, packed my photo albums, and even stored away my old fishing trophies. The house looked bare of personality. Did we miss anything you need to bring, Charlie? Aro asked. I opened the safe that I kept carefully hidden under the living room rug and pulled out my banking information, the deed to the house, and all my other important documents. I wouldn't be coming back here. Everything important needed to come with me now. I tried to think of anything else that I might need or want in my new life, but there was nothing. I picked up the first box, and Jane and Alec did the same. Aro looked uneasy but clicked the button on his car keys to unlock the vehicle. We loaded the first boxes in the trunk of the SUV. It didn't take long. While Jane, Alec, and I loaded the trunk, Aro gazed out into the forest that bordered the lawn. I was curious what concerned him. The forest had always encroached on my land. I had once found it peaceful. As Alec was loading the last box, Aro let out a disturbing snarl. I followed his gaze, as did Jane and Alec. Too quickly to comprehend the details, I found myself lodged between the body of the SUV and Jane and Alec. Jacob appeared, and the 3 almost seemed to fall into crouches. Jacob raised his hands, as if in surrender. I'm sorry, Jacob said. His voice carried the distance. I was wrong. I've tried to call Bella to apologize, but she will not accept my calls. We offered you the hand of friendship for our queen, Jacob Black. I cannot speak for Bella, but my best guess is that all you can hope for now is an alliance. You may still call on us in times of trouble. That is the only reassurance I can offer. Aro said. His voice was cold and unfriendly. I'm sorry, Charlie, Jacob offered. You and Billy lied to me and made me question my very sanity, I accused. We thought it was for the best. Be happy, Charlie, Jacob admitted. Then he turned back and disappeared into the trees. Aro. After Jacob was truly gone from the area and the watching wolves had gone with him, I joined Jane and Alec at the SUV. Charlie slid into the passenger side without asking questions, and the twins got into the back seat. I steered the vehicle to Port Angeles, where we'd left the plane. Charlie was quiet and thoughtful as I drove. I had a feeling he was merely organizing his questions. I expected an explosion of them on the flight home. Jane and Alec spent the drive observing Charlie. They had heard much about this man, as had I. We were all curious. I had the best idea about his life from what I'd learned when our hands met. Even I didn't know how he was going to handle a total life and lifestyle shakeup. There was nothing in his past that came even close to this level of upheaval. His life, barring Renee's leaving, had been quiet and predictable. When I pulled into the hangar, Charlie followed me up the stairs and onto the plane. Jane and Alec brought Charlie's boxes aboard and stored them safely. Our pilot waited for us to be ready to leave from the cockpit enclosure. Minutes after Jane closed the door, we were already taxiing and preparing for takeoff. Do you require food now, Charlie, or would you prefer to wait? Jane asked when we'd reached cruising altitude. Food would be very nice, Jane, Charlie said and fell back into contemplative silence. Jane got up and heated Charlie's meal for him. The chef had prepared one of Bella's favorites for him, I noticed. After the food had been eaten and Charlie still remained silent, I offered, there is much you don't know about your daughter's life. I'm aware that your search for answers has driven you in the past months. How about I share with you what I know and leave you to ask questions after that? Charlie nodded eagerly, but the look in his eyes was fear. He wasn't certain he wanted essay answers now that they were available, apparently. I started slowly. Bella's tale was long, involved, and intense. I didn't want to overwhelm Charlie. His expression grew stormier the further I got. When I finished the explanation of Bella's life in Forks, Charlie put his head in his hands. I barely knew Bella at all, he cried. He sat in silence absorbing all he'd been told for a full hour. We didn't interrupt his thoughts. But Jane did offer her hand in support. When he asked me to continue, I began again. This time I talked about Bella's college career. He was more familiar with the details at this point. He nodded along with the tale in places. I explained why none of Bella's acquaintances had truly known her in the course of my tale. He just sat quietly, waiting for me to continue, and squeezed Jane's hand. I told of Dimitri being sent to collect Bella and how prepared she'd been for his arrival, and carried on through the Cullen's trial. I told Bella's tale slowly and carefully. I didn't gloss over the moments of danger or the changes she'd experienced. When I finished the tale, Charlie just looked at me with disbelief written plain on his face. "You three are vampires," Charlie clarified. He was shocked, but he didn't drop Jane's hand in judgment or disgust. "Yes, Charlie, so is the pilot," I confirmed. "You've heard of us as cold ones in the Quileute stories. How can you three be around me? But it's too dangerous for me to see Bella right now," he asked. I explained the turning, the adjustments necessary, and the newborn year. Charlie seemed to take in, analyze, and accept the information. "Change me," Charlie insisted suddenly. "Then I'd be safe around Bella." I was proud of Charlie's courage, his willingness to accept anything for his daughter, and his forthright nature. "We already have 2 newborns in the castle right now, Charlie. We couldn't handle a third and see to the tasks required to keep the castle running." Charlie started to argue with me, but I clarified, "I'm not saying never. But changing someone can't be done on a whim. It takes planning, preparation, and an education to prepare you for a world you didn't even know existed this morning. It is traumatizing to be one of those of us changed against our will. I don't want that for you. In truth, I would prefer you join us in immortality, and it would make Bella incandescently happy. But it will be a while before we can take that step." Charlie nodded, obviously disappointed but accepting. "You will be able to video call with Bella daily from your new apartment, and I would never doubt her dedication to gaining control of the thirst so that she can visit you. I instructed that all technology required for you to keep in contact be provided. As soon as Bella and Angela have both gotten control, you will be welcome in the castle. Felix will be by tomorrow to show you how to make and receive calls from Bella and explain anything technological that you don't understand. You can feel free to ask him questions about televisions, cell phones, and computer use. I don't doubt that he would also be willing to share details about Bella and her life from his perspective. He's an altogether amiable fellow and has become like a brother to her." I offered. "Explain mates to me again," Charlie asked. I explained every detail I knew of the concept. I also offered, Marcus would be able to answer questions about mating I've never even considered. He is the scholar among us. He spent millennia doing nothing but poring over tombs on every imaginable subject. He would be willing to assist you with your questions when he's not attending to his own mate. I'm sure of it. You, Keys, and Marcus are kings, and my Bella and Angela Weber are queens, Charlie stated. I nodded in agreement and said nothing, knowing he was trying to accept the facts of this new world. Bella hid everything from me to protect me from death or life as a vampire. And the Quileutes are shapeshifters who knew all this. Charlie confirmed. He released Jane and held out his hands as if begging for the truth to change. Yes, Charlie, the wolves protected Bella from many dangers in the world and at times even from herself. She jumped off a cliff to hear Edward's voice, and had Jacob not saved her, she would have perished. The wolves aren't on my friends list at the moment, but they did much to protect your daughter in their time. I want to kill Edward Cullen, Charlie insisted in the growing silence. He started all of this. Jane and Alec chuckled lightly, and I couldn't help but agree with Charlie. I have a strong urge to take his head and burn it as well. Charlie, the problem with that is that ultimately Edward is so unhappy as an immortal that he craves death. Not everyone is cut out to endure through the years. But Bella refuses to give him anything he wants. She desires his suffering, not his life. Still, Dimitri tracks him frequently. He is currently in the middle of nowhere in Montana, with no comfort, feeding on the blood of animals. And likely annoying the rest of his family. I would guess that he will run his mouth off to a nomad and meet his end before his sentence is complete. Edward is not the most circumspect individual. Carlyle has always protected him from the repercussions of his actions, and he thinks his ability to hear surface thoughts makes him all-knowing. Maybe we can kill him together if he survives his 500-year sentence. Bella likely wouldn't deny us both. This Jasper person, why did Bella ask for his release? Charlie asked. I considered the question from all sides before answering. Jasper had ultimately committed no crime. In Volterra, we punish the guilty. We try not to punish the innocent because of association. You will learn about our laws and customs over time. The only wrong I could have convicted Jasper of is not reporting the Cullens, lawbreaking. The fact that he didn't inform me angers me, but I believe he was the only one to show your daughter true kindness in her time with the Cullens. Bella has a soft spot for him, and I would not be surprised if we see him again in the future. He has a terrible past, my lord. Perhaps Our Lady Angela could offer him healing. Alex said. Healing? Charlie asked. We were treading into territory that I had not intended to venture into. Still, Charlie would learn our many skills in time. Vampires sometimes have gifts, Charlie. Bella is the ultimate protector, or she will be when she masters her gifts fully. She can protect one from both mental attacks, like Edward's mind reading, and physical attacks, like Felix's strength. If Bella chose to protect you, no amount of strength would penetrate her shield, and no gift would reach you either. You would be safe as long as Bella's shield held. Bella would do anything to protect those she loves. And that held true with her gift. Angela is sweet, gentle, caring, and innocent. Hers is the gift of healing. She can heal the injuries that scar one's soul, and somehow the scars or marks from those injuries disappear from the skin as well. She doesn't control it yet, it is purely instinctive. Our castle is a happier place with her gift. She even healed Jane and Alec here. Who hurt the pair of you? Charlie asked. I was pleased to hear the protective tone in his voice. We were tried as witches a long time ago. The villagers beat us, then tried to burn us at the stake. The Volturi saved us. Aro'S saved us. He changed us. Our injuries were too severe for us to survive otherwise. Angela healed the emotional pain of that time from our souls. She even led marks from the flame that the change couldn't heal. Jane explained. Charlie became uncomfortable and changed the subject to Italian weather. I collected Charlie's clothing preferences during the discussion and texted them to Heidi. So Charlie wasn't trapped in flannel in Volterra. Felix. Charlie's new place had been outfitted for his every need, except for clothing and food. Heidi was seeing to the clothing now. And Bella insisted that her father rarely ate at home, so we'd let him choose what he liked to fill his kitchen. Frozen dinners looked unappealing from my brief research, and cooking seemed like a chore. I would have picked unhealthy packaged things, and the chef would have picked raw meat, breads, and vegetables. Better he see to it himself. Now that I'd connected Charlie's computer to Bella's, I was free to do what I wanted. Or I was until an overly nervous Bella accosted me. Teach me something, Felix. Bella begged. I wasn't in the mood for more training at the moment. I thought about teaching Bella video games. But I didn't have a supply of spare controllers built up. Bella seemed to need focus, but recreation seemed fine. Bella needed to control her nerves, pass the time until Charlie, and the twins landed, and have a good time. I decided that playing cards were cheap, we had plenty, and poker might supply a distraction. We sat at the table, and I explained the game. Bella's focus was so complete that I had to fight back laughter. We played a couple of hands for her to get the hang of it. Bella did well, and it seemed to provide her with relief. Dimitri walked into the room, saw what we were doing, and decided to join us. Bella insisted that we not use real money, but welcomed Dimitri to the game. 5 hands in, I was impressed. I was down 5,000. And Dimitri was down by 1,500. Santiago and Chelsea wandered in and asked to join the game. Soon, we were going to have quite a gathering. We cheered, and Bella laughed when Santiago won his first hand. Bella had been dominating the table with a combination of focus and beginner's luck. Dimitri took the next hand and Chelsea the one after that. It was a pleasant way to spend an evening and calmed Bella in the process. Dimitri. I disagreed with Aro'S collecting Charlie with just the twins as backup. There was danger circling ever closer. I thought safety was preferable to speed. I was overruled. Aro'S expected they would be able to get in and out quickly and without problem. They were right, and I was relieved. Still, I had several lower guard with me to collect them from the airport. I accepted ultimate responsibility for Charlie's current predicament. The lower guards assigned to Forks assured me that they set an appropriate scene, in addition to their confrontation with the wolves and destroying the Cullens, Forks' residence. I wasn't sure how thorough they were, but Charlie was decidedly unconvinced by their efforts. I didn't see the point in chiding that team at this point. Charlie was here, and as sad as it was that he'd lost it all, Bella was so happy to have him here. As I was leaving the castle to come here, the poker game concluded, Bella was insisting, and fell. Ix was denying that Bella was ready to begin learning how to control herself around blood. I wasn't going to bet on the outcome of the argument. Our queen could be a force of nature when she wanted something. Even things she clearly wasn't ready for. There were 2 configurations of guards for the trip back to Volterra. One surrounded Aro'S SUV, and the other surrounded ours. Aro was required back at the castle. Bella was in pain. Though she hid it, she was rubbing her chest. I was taking responsibility for settling Charlie into his new home, even to the point of helping him fill his cabinets. I expected the grocery store would be a novel experience. The plane came into land, and my guards came to attention. The plane came to a stop in front of us instead of continuing to the hangar. When the steps descended, Charlie and Aro exited the plane first. They looked like old friends. Jane and Alec were close behind. They informed me that Charlie had boxes on board of mementos and a few clothes. I issued orders, and some of the lower guard broke off and loaded the boxes into my SUV. I bowed when Aro approached with Charlie. "Our queen requires you back at the castle, my lord," I confessed. "She rubs her chest in your absence. Though she tries to be sneaky about it. I will see Charlie to comfort." Aro introduced me as one of the 2 who provided Bella with brotherly affection. Charlie offered me his hand. I took it. He seemed to be adjusting to his new circumstances very well. When Aro assured himself that Charlie would be comfortable with me, he made his excuses. The guard moved when Aro got into his SUV. Santiago drove Aro to the castle as swiftly as allowed. Aro must be in a rush to see Bella as well. In moments, the SUV was loaded with all of Charlie's boxes. Space was left for our shopping, and I escorted Charlie to the vehicle. I expected Charlie to be overflowing with questions, but he was composed. When we were on our way, he asked, "Where are we headed?" "A grocery store. Stop as necessary before I take you to your new home," I explained. "We were unable to fill the kitchen for you," I admitted. Charlie nodded. A few minutes later, he asked, "Is Bella truly happy here?" I assured Charlie of Bella's happiness by sharing tales of her exploits since she'd arrived among us. By the time silence fell again, Charlie was chuckling and nodding. In the grocery store, I translated labels for Charlie. He seemed content with all of our purchases, except for beer. His preferred brand wasn't distributed in Italy and was unhappy with having to choose an alternative. I suggested he select a couple of options to test, and he seemed satisfied with that. At the last moment, I remembered that coffee was important in the morning to both of our queens, and I doubted a coffee machine had been thought of. I added one to our cart, and we made our way to the checkout. I paid for the groceries, and we met up with the guard. When we were back in the car, I offered Charlie the hand of friendship. As I knew Bella would want me to do. "I know that things have changed dramatically for you, Charlie. It must be difficult to experience so many changes so quickly. I can't imagine the confuse you must be experiencing knowing your daughter is near but unsafe to be around you. The kings, my guard, and I will be here for you as you adjust and beyond. We want to become your friends and even your family." Charlie thanked me, but he seemed to be getting overwhelmed. I maintained my silence the rest of the way to the apartment. When I opened the door to Charlie's new home, I was satisfied with the job the guard had done furnishing the space. Charlie's mouth dropped open as he toured his new space. "I hope it is satisfactory," I offered. "This is luxurious," Charlie claimed. "Thank you." Boxes and bags were quickly brought up, and the guard busied themselves with the unfamiliar task of putting away groceries. "Life is going to be different here," Charlie proclaimed. I sat down on the Leith, our sofa that faced Charlie's new television. "There are no peaceful forests here," I admitted. "You live in a city instead of a small town. Rain will not be your constant companion. Some things will change, some will stay the same. Football hasn't changed. The beer is similar. Bella assures me you are a fan of both. Your support network will be vampires instead of shapeshifters. In time, you will make friends of your own among the citizens of the city. My only caution is that you cannot reveal the existence of vampires to anyone ever. You can seek employment if you feel the need to stay busy, but it is in no way required. We will provide for you." Bella confessed she feels the need to learn the language. "If you share her desire, I will find someone appropriately patient to teach you. I have provided you with my cell phone number if you want it, Charlie. Felix will be by to help you with technology stuff tomorrow. It will be during the day if it is overcast, at twilight if it is not." "Why does sunlight matter?" Charlie asked. "Sunlight reveals us as different. We sparkle like a disco ball. It is an unfortunate side effect," I admitted. Charlie chuckled and broke out into a full belly laugh. I was glad to see it. When mirth faded, Charlie admitted, "I know this vampire thing is more complicated than I understand. Please, protect my daughter. It is one of my favorite duties, Charlie. You have my word. Just out of curiosity, why didn't you believe the crime scene we created? I asked. The lab couldn't guarantee me the blood was Bella's, and there was no body. Those facts didn't convince me exactly. But I just couldn't accept my baby girl was gone. Charlie admitted. I nodded, wished Charlie a good evening, and made my way back to the castle. Felix. I eventually gave in to try Bella's bloodlust training idea, if for no other reason to convince her she wasn't yet ready. Our queen would not concede without a demonstration. She was devouring the blood bag in a fraction of a second after the scent reached her nose. Dead blood supplied in blood bags isn't even that tempting. The taste is stale, the plastic taints the blood, and the anticoagulants are not appealing. When the blood bag was gone, Bella admitted defeat. I'm not ready, she agreed. I gave her a hug and offered comfort, but agreed with her. I promised her that she would be ready in time. I assured her that I would owe it that she could reach Charlie by phone and computer. They would be able to see each other's faces daily. Aro'S arrival redirected Bella's attention entirely to him. He grunted slightly when she forgot to control her strength. I excused myself, leaving them in a close embrace. I went to seek my mate. She'd been working nearly constantly to provide the queens with an adequate number of bodies and seeing to Charlie's arrival along with all her other duties. I intended to steal her away for a night alone. I located my mate near my office. Her thoughts had echoed mine. We ventured to the far side of the garden, simply talking and enjoying each other's company. Eventually, catching up on recent events turned to passion and we made love against the wall all night. It was magical. Bella, I had missed Aro'S in his absence. I thought I'd prepared myself for our parting. I thought I could handle a short separation. I had underestimated the requirements of the mating bond. By the time Aro'S returned, I had driven the guard crazy and worn a thin spot in my shirt just over my heart. We made our way home and made love through the night. When dawn broke, I got up the nerve to show Aro'S a trick with my mental shield Renata had helped me with. I raised my shield from my mind. On his next caress, I felt his shock through the bond. He whispered my name reverently. You've faced so many challenges, my love. Aro'S said after reading the entirety of my life. I am sorry I didn't find you earlier. I told Aro'S the truth as I saw it. Every challenge, every injury, every pain was a step on the way to becoming yours. I would repeat it all again as long as I was guaranteed the same end. By the time we made it to the throne room, everyone was gathered and waiting on us. I would have blushed had I been able. Dimitri and Felix both provided a detailed update on Sylvester's network, their location, their communications, and the threat level of each coven, each individual, and each group. Keys listed are strategic options for dealing with the problem. He was convinced that simultaneous strikes against every threat was the best way to go. I could see the benefits and wasn't a strategist. I had nothing to add. After an hour-long debate, Aro'S, Keys, and Marcus were unanimous. The thing that was still up in the air was how we were going to gather all the staff from all our various outposts together to one place without telegraphing that a battle was coming. I listened to the guards' ideas and suggestions, as did the king's, but they all seemed unnecessarily complicated. Why don't we call them home? Under the pretense of holding an organization-wide ball. Let our enemies think we are partying while they plan our demise. I suggested. We have never held such an event, Dimitri considered. You have never had two queens join you in immortality. It could be the excuse you need for an extensive migration of personnel. I offered. Not that I'm looking forward to being surrounded by a majority of vampires I don't know. It seems overwhelming, but it would give you what you want. Brilliant, Aro'S declared. It will be very involved, masters, but not to the extent that a gathering of strangers would be. Heidi declared. Timing is both essential and limiting, masters, Felix offered. Would a fortnight be acceptable to everyone? Marcus asked. Even planning for battle, I found myself happy for Marcus. He was alive, he was participating, he was ready for battle. He was truly living, and I found myself grateful, again, that Angela had chosen him definitively. Looks and nods were exchanged among the guard and the kings. Finally, Aro'S spoke. We gather in a fortnight. Make it happen, Felix. I pitied Dimitri having to arrange for every single guard all over the world to travel to Volterra. Sylvester was a nuisance. However, listening to his calls confirmed repeatedly that if we didn't go after him, he would come after us. His plans seemed to echo the newborn wars in the south of the USA, combined with a desire to collect one or both of our queens. Once I arrived back at the castle, I'd pitch in and help Dimitri where I could. What good were friends if you couldn't count on them in the lead up to a battle? For now, I was on my way to see Charlie Swan and introduce him to the technology that would be required to keep in contact with Bella. Simple cell phone calls could have done the job, but she felt the need to see her father. As they couldn't be in the same room, this was the best solution. I tried to make the video calling program as simple as I could for both of their sakes. Bella was fine with internet research, writing, email, and adding in pictures when required, but she was by no means a technical wizard. She didn't even have Angela's flair with photography. Point and shoot as the only type of camera that interested her. Charlie, well, I was unaware of his skill level. It would probably require more time to teach him to navigate the satellite television than the video calling, but I've cleared my evening. There was nothing to take my mind off this tutorial. I was looking forward to this. I'd heard a lot about Charlie from Bella, and I was eager to see how he was adjusting. He'd lived around shapeshifters for years, but he'd been ignorant of the fact. How would he manage being surrounded by vampires with his full knowledge? My knock on Charlie's door was greeted by a fast-paced walk to the door in the wood swinging open. "Felix?" he asked. "That's me, sir," I acknowledged. "Come on in," he offered. "They didn't mention you were so big." My laugh boomed through the room, and Charlie smiled. We were going to get along just fine. Charlie eyed me frankly and declared, "The only technology I can manage in this apartment is the coffee maker. I need some serious help. Even the TV is fancy here. I didn't want you to lose your American football games. We'll have you working on all of it in no time. How about we start with the cell phone? My work only provided an old-fashioned flip phone, and I don't know where to start when the phone doesn't have buttons." For the next hour, I showed Charlie how to work an iPhone. He caught on well. When he'd done it himself once, he seemed to retain the information. I showed him how to make a contact by offering him my phone number. I wanted him to be able to reach me if something broke, and truth be told, I thought I might enjoy this particular human's company. I added the elite guard's numbers for Charlie, should assistance be required when I wasn't available. Charlie had become a member of our quirky and slightly dysfunctional family. Whether he knew it yet or not, the television took longer to teach than the phone. Still, when Charlie found the sports channels, I felt reassured that he'd at least be entertained. The last thing we went over was the computer. I showed him how to access an internet browser. That seemed to be the extent of his computer knowledge. Still, he was curious, attentive, and learned quickly. If he wanted to know more about computers, I'd help him. Before I explained all of the video calling details to Charlie, I thought it was best to warn him. "Charlie, Bella is going to look different." "How so?" he asked. He was paying close attention now. "New vampires have almost glowing red eyes. They aren't quite the same as mine. Mine are almost a maroon color most of the time. Hers will be redder, brighter, and make her look dangerous. She will also be paler, and her features will be perfected. Her voice has altered slightly. It is clearer and more Belle-like. She'll appear similar to her old self, but different enough for you to notice. It is unsettling for humans to know someone before and after the change. It is the smallest part of why this isn't usually allowed." Belladangerous, Charlie considered. "Yes, Charlie, if Bella were safe to be around, we wouldn't be keeping you separated. You'd probably reside in the castle with us. At this moment, Bella is very dangerous to anything with blood pumping in its veins. Doorknobs, too, she forgets her strength and crushes them. There are many adjustments for a new vampire to make before they can appear human again. We don't need to breathe or blink, and forgetting to do either unsettles people. We are also unnaturally still. We lose the need to fidget with the change. Most of our human staff have been given an extended vacation at the moment. My maid has taken up the secretarial duties, and we have vampires tending the gardens. Our receptionist, Bella, simply avoids, but if they came into contact at this point, we'd need a new secretary. I don't want you to be afraid of your daughter, but I also don't want you to be unprepared when you see her again. Vampires are predators, not just enhanced humans." Charlie sat quietly for a full 30 minutes, taking in the information he'd been given. I didn't interrupt, didn't try to explain further, and didn't offer false comfort. When Charlie spoke, he sounded confident. "I'm ready," he declared. Together, we navigated the video program. It only required a total of 3 clicks to initiate a call. I patted myself on the back for making it so intuitive to use. Soon, Bella appeared on the screen. It took some adjustments for Charlie to learn where to sit so Bella could see him, but in less than 5 minutes, I let them talk and turned my attention to the sports reporters on the television. I could have listened to the call, but that felt wrong somehow. Listening to potential criminals admit their misdeeds was one thing. Eavesdropping on my queen and her father was different. When the call concluded about a half hour later, I helped Charlie disconnect the call. He looked somewhat shaken when he turned to me. She was different. Her looks, her voice, her stillness, everything was different. Still, she seemed like my daughter. Charlie explained. She is still the same stubborn, loyal, loving person you knew. She's been good for us, Charlie. She added softness to our lives that didn't exist before. She helps me prank Dimitri and insists that we take time to have fun instead of working constantly. She's a good person. Even Jane has given Bella her loyalty, and that girl is tough to convince. I offered Charlie the results of my labor in making him an Italian citizen with a local bank account. I explained everything to him, and he thanked me sincerely, but he was still shaken from seeing his daughter look inhuman in a way he didn't expect. I asked him if he had any other questions for me, and when he assured me he was fine, I left him to make the mental adjustments that needed to be made. This would take some time for him. He'd just had his first proof that his daughter was very clearly no longer human. I hid my pity and excused myself. I would assist Dimitri in his coordination efforts tonight since Heidi was busy getting criminals sent in from Russia for our queen's meals and seeing to an entire staff's worth of clerical work. Arrow. I discovered Bella staring out the window, alone in our suite. I went to her immediately and offered comfort. She fell into my embrace and sobbed dryly. From what I could understand of her broken speech, she'd just gotten off the computer with her father. And while he didn't say anything to disturb my sensitive mate, he looked at her differently. He had been aware of her otherness, and it had upset her. I knew this path would be difficult for Bella. There are many reasons why we cut all contact with our past after the change. How dangerous we become is only a small part of it. Still, Charlie Swan didn't leave us with much choice. He refused to accept all evidence and became obsessed to the point that all of his friends and every member of his support network abandoned him. Even his job had been unhappy with him. Bella, as queen of our world, was allowed some leeway, and she would never abandon her father to life as a bitter, angry, lonely old man. It just wasn't in her. I redirected her attention to training, asking her to work on shielding us in the throne room. It truly could be useful in multiple situations, but my focus was really on distracting my mate. Playing on her need to protect us would help, I was certain. But it felt almost cruel to change the subject from her conversation to the Volturi's need for protection. Still, her determination to keep us safe banished the sadness from her eyes. We went to the throne room, and Bella started by shielding just the two of us. The success ignited the light in her eyes. Keys was in his studio, and Marcus and Angela were busy in their rooms, so we couldn't continue stretching her gift. But the distraction was successful, and she was smiling again. I had become a fan of cinema since Bella had joined my life, so we claimed an action-adventure mauve, i.e. from the Elite Guard recreation room, and curled up on our bed to watch it. After the many explosions, floating objects, death-defying feats, and enough romance to tie it all together, Bella and I began to discuss the future. Soon, Sylvester and his cohorts would be Ash, and that threat would be vanquished. My young mate would learn to control her shield. Her newborn year would pass. My interest was in what Bella wanted to do after that. I wanted to learn her interests, her passions, and her needs. Bella expressed a need for peace in the vampire world. She admitted to me for the first time she wanted to help Marcus have his justice from Vladimir and Stefan in the Romanian coven. Marcus had told her when she was human that he needed their deaths. The need to help him seemed to have flourished in Bella. She even surprised me, admitting that she'd like to seek justice for Jasper. She hadn't mentioned the former warlord since before her change. I had no idea she still thought of him. After all the enemies were vanquished and peace truly reigned, Bella expressed a wish to be a published author and to travel the world at my side. She wanted to see places from the novels she'd read and places she'd only imagined. She even mentioned the urge to see Egypt. It wasn't a place I could picture her, but I would show it to her someday. Slowly, I shared my dreams with her, and to my surprise, they excited her. We began building a plan for our future, one fantasy at a time. Bella would be surprised by how fast the years passed, I was sure, but our future together looked wonderfully bright. I promise I'll upload the next part very soon, so stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss it and can watch the next part as soon as it drops.